Imagine that you are an ordinary schoolboy Seiji Managi, and you are just trying to get through another boring lecture. Our guy is one of those legends who are sure today is the perfect day for dozing right in the middle of the lesson. But his dream is reshaped by a mysterious wave pulse, and somewhere in the silence a voice whispers about a blessing. He suddenly opens his eyes, and in front of him is not a desk, but bubbles float around as if the whole class suddenly dived underwater. Nagi panics. He is already deep underwater and urgently needs to get to the surface before he drowns. He tries to move, but his arms and legs do not obey, and a giant fish holds his gaze intently without blinking. This is not just a hallucination. With shock, he realizes that he has actually become the water itself. His vision expands and he sees the field from above, as if looking from a drone. Suddenly, a massive stream of information flashes in his head, as if he is downloading the entire wiki of the world in a second. He comes to the conclusion he has reincarnated as the great water spirit, and this huge pond is now his true physical embodiment. Several days pass before he finally tries to put together the fact that his human life has officially ended. Being a lake is pure pleasure, sunlight feels incredible, and there is no stress in his mind. Strange creatures begin to appear on its shores, for example, a horned hare which looks like a rare gacha pull. He quickly realizes that his water is a truly top-tier treasure. It can heal any injury or illness. But then the silence breaks. The local wildlife senses the approach of something dangerous. In this new world, Nagi suddenly recognizes two human children and understands that these are the first humans he has ever seen. The children carry a basket of healing herbs, but it is clear from them that they are afraid to dare to use them. The boy Lumina leans over the lake and prays, "Great Spirit, I beg you, heal our mother's illness." They have gathered everything they could find, healing herbs, hoping that the lake will grant a miracle. Tension breaks the voice when a giant winged wolf bursts from the bushes like a high-level field boss. This monster is terrifying, row after row of sharp teeth and wings. It is immediately clear that this is not some ordinary trash mob. The children are hysterical, sweating profusely, and the wolf rushes forward to crush them. Nagi does not hesitate. He summons a huge swirling wave of water, protecting the children. From his liquid perspective, he sees everything, and a single force easily blocks the predator. Nagi is stunned. Just think, and the water obeys without any delay. He realizes he looks too suspicious like this giant slimy blob, so he begins to materialize a human form. He merges into a brutal figure in a hood. Luminous water cascades around his body. He even crafts stylish clothes for himself from the lake so as not to look like a complete weirdo. "You're already okay," he says, reaching out to the trembling children. The children choke with relief and can't hold back. Tears burst out. They cling to their savior in strong embraces. Glancing at the mountain ridge, the boy croaks, "Who are you?" Nagi decides to keep his old name and introduces himself, saying he is the spirit of the lake. The children's eyes flash with real sparks. They see such magical power for the first time. Nagi keeps his face calm and admits he took this job only recently. He lifts a small water sphere and touches the girl's face right where a terrible wound was just a minute ago. The wound disappears instantly, so his healing abilities are level S. The girl shines and shouts at the top of her voice, "Nagi, you are incredible." But just as the boy was about to utter a desperate request, his face suddenly became extremely serious. "Please help my mother," he begged, bowing his head and trembling with tears. Nagi gently patted the boy on the head and whispered that everything would be fine. He makes the children promise that no one will learn about his existence. The world must remain completely secret. He fills their vial with concentrated healing water, assuring them, with this water he will cure their mother. And since the forest is teeming with dangerous monsters, he decides that they definitely need a bodyguard. He creates a small jumping water spirit to watch over them and guide them home. A system window Nagipedia appears, explaining how all this works. This is not just magic. Powerful spirits can create familiars of the same attribute so that they become their eyes and ears. The boy feels a mysterious presence from the small spirit that corresponds to Nagi's power. Nagi names the little one Lu and asks the children to befriend him. They wave goodbye to each other as they return to their village, already with a new companion. Nagi decides that he has had enough of people for now and disappears back into the depths, dissolving into them. He quietly hovers among the plants, enjoying the peaceful life of a spirit. The night sky is reflected on the surface, and he finally feels at home. And it was at that moment that his party is shattered by another desperate call for help, echoing through the water. On the shore appears a family of dark elves. They look as if they have been through a real war. The father, covered in wounds, pleaded desperately, "Please save this child, please." Nagi immediately directs a stream of healing water straight into the mouth of the child who is already dying. The boy's eyes snap open, and his life force returns in an instant. Their wounds vanish completely, and the family is moved to tears by the spirit's mercy. Nagi takes out his Nagipedia and uses it to search for information about these newcomers. The system explains dark elves have a high affinity with spirits and, as a rule, are able to see them. But in this world, humans are stubborn thickheads who consider dark elves enemies. Although they truly oppose demons, humans still look at them as if they were monsters. Nagi speaks to them from the water and assures them they don't need to be so formal. The elves are stunned. The Great Spirit speaks aloud. Nagi tells them that they can live near the lake, but on the condition, never pollute the water even once. The family fills with gratitude and thanks him for his kindness. They get acquainted, Etna, his wife Lena, and their son Gilio. And that is how Nagi gets his first group of permanent neighbors. A month passes and Nagi constantly thinks about how the human children are doing. He visits them through his acquaintance and loses his sight that way. He sees how the children and their mother are happy and healthy in their own home and feels like a true hero. He still does not know the exact reason why he was called to this world. But he understands one thing: if he can use this S-rank power to save people, that will be enough purpose for him. And he swears he will save everyone who falls within his reach. Nagi emerges from the lake to talk to Etna, and she, surprised by the sudden appearance, sharply stands up. Etna says that since they arrived, no one has even suffered serious injuries. All the time, Nagi sows seeds in the fertile lands around the lake. "I am looking forward to this," Nagi replies with a smile. But already a moment later, a distorted call rings in his ears. Someone is calling for help. Nagi asks Etna if she heard anything, but the elf is completely unaware. The voice grows louder, a desperate plea to the Great Spirit to save someone's only loved one. Suddenly, a huge magical circle flares up under Nagi's feet, and a crack of power splits the air. He is torn from his place, pulled into a whirl where water and light spin, as if the world itself has turned. "Where are they taking our boy, and who is pulling the strings?" Nagi wakes up in a strange place, not understanding where the hell he is, pulled through that mysterious magical circle. Later it turns out that he was called by a barely audible voice begging for help. But he immediately finds himself locked inside a cramped, dark cage, surrounded on all sides by frightened children. It immediately hits him: this is not just a prison, a cage for live merchandise. One little half-elf girl desperately prays to the Great Spirit to save her brother, Ruto. Nagi understands, despite the fact that she is half-elf and spirits are usually not summoned, her pure heart still reached him. He appears before her and proclaims, "I have come in response to your call. I am Nagi, the Great Spirit of the lake." Seeing the boy unconscious lying on the floor, Nagi understands. His new healing abilities are the only thing that can save the child. The girl, Yona, begs him to save her only family and, without blinking, offers to give everything she has in return. Nagi feels Ruto is already at death's door and immediately understands that he was called because of his connection to the healing power. He is struck by the strength and kind heart of Yona, and he decides without hesitation to fulfill her request. A spiritual seal contract flashes on her hand. Nagi manifests the sign of their new bond. The contract is completed. He smiles, lifts his spirits, and is ready to get to work. Nagi places his palm on Ruto's head and channels a flow of restorative energy into his body. In a moment, the iron shackles that held the child turn into shattered glass, and the healing magic finally begins to work. The other children, from beastfolk to elves, are completely stunned because they see their shackles have disappeared. Ruto finally opens his eyes and looks at his sister, trying to understand if this is not a hallucination. Naga's heart melts when he sees this reunion, but he knows he cannot just leave the rest of the children in this abandoned den. He tells them, "We will escape from here," although he himself trembles and still does not understand how to handle a whole group of orphans. One of the beast-headed children asks if it is even possible to escape, and Nagi reassures him, as long as he is nearby, they are safe. But as soon as this reassurance sounds, the trash mob guards appear and pounce on the boys, shouting that they caused a commotion. Seeing Nagi, they freeze. A viscous disgust and helpless fear wash over them like a wave. These burly fools treat the children like trash, and Naga's aura already makes the whole room vibrate faintly. One of them even snatches a knife and boldly asks Nagi if he thinks he can really put them in their place. When Nagi listens to their threats, his eyes grow cold and he quietly calls them a bunch of trash. But before the guard can recover, Nagi manipulates the moisture in the air and throws him back with a high-pressure water blast. The guard is already panicking. "Stay away," they shout as Megi's water magic begins to swirl around him. He mocks them and asks if they would believe him if he said he was a great spirit. Nagi is no longer joking. He summons giant liquid hands that engulf the attackers completely. He clenches his fist and the water instantly responds, crushing the opponents. He raises a bloody whirlpool that sweeps the guards off their feet, leaving them completely crushed on the stone floor. Liars remain trembling in puddles, while Nagi stands above them, an indomitable machine. When the threats immediately retreat, he takes the guards' keys and unlocks the rest of the cells so other children can escape. Even more reinforcements arrive. They call him a mage and claim that this is part of a legal slave trade industry. Nagi throws fire with an instant gesture and coldly silences the noise. He is not a mage, he is a spirit. He points a finger at the main scoundrel and proclaims that he has come to save the children from dirty scum like them. Nagi steps back, allowing the water to speak for him, washing away the guards with a giant tidal wave. And then Nagi leaves them one last terrifying warning: if you continue to enslave children, from this moment on there will be no next time. The remaining guards are so frightened that they almost fall while walking just to break free and escape as quickly as possible. Our guy leads the children out of the dungeon and finally they get outside, once again breathing in the sunlight. They find themselves in a giant city and Nagi suddenly realizes he has no idea where he is or how to return to his lake. As if on cue, the boy's stomach growls and he clearly understands. People really need food. He checks his inventory and confirms he has not a single gold coin, so he cannot buy supplies. He popped into the bakery and the seller eyed the traveler suspiciously, who was wandering with a whole cart of gacha, where different races were mixed together. Nagi panics and spins a crazy story. Supposedly all these children are his stepbrothers and he is simply on cloud 9 because they have finally reunited. But in a moment he regrets getting carried away. The baker lady cries from his fake story, tears well up in her eyes. She gives the children as much bread as they can eat for free and reminds Nagi, despite the scoundrels in this world, there are also good people. After Nagi gets some snacks, he learns that the children are from the city of Ilmus. It is far to the south of the kingdom of Rugunas. He needs a quick way to earn some currency, so the baker advises, let him go to a merchant or become a craftsman. But Nagi notices the Adventurers Guild and decides that the fastest way to get a bag is to take a quest. He enters the guild and sees the request board and immediately convinces himself that this is the perfect way to earn money quickly. He approaches the counter with the whole party and asks the receptionist to register him as a traveler. On the form he keeps everything as simple as possible. Name, Nagi, race human, occupation mage, skill water magic. He receives his official ID card, starting from the lowest level 10th class. To avoid unnecessary fuss, he takes a simple task to gather herbs, one that looks completely safe so the children could go with him. And just as he was about to leave, a group of high-level travelers bursts through the door carrying a wounded comrade. A real commotion breaks out in the guild. The party was attacked by a basilisk. Nagi knows wounds from a basilisk carry a nasty curse that prevents the wounds from healing properly. Yona looks at the dying elf filly and begs Nagi to help her. Nagi exhales and tells her to leave it to him, although he really did not want to stand out today. He approaches the unconscious elf and discreetly pours some magic-infused water into his mouth. The crowd is still panicking because of the basilisk, but the curse is already being washed away by Nagi's divine magic from the divine tier. He tells the children to relax and suggests, while everyone is distracted by the miracle, go finish his heraldry puzzle. Philadelphia wakes up as if after a long sleep finally returned to herself and immediately tells her comrades, as soon as I opened my eyes, I immediately felt a divine presence. She understands it's not just in her head and quickly looks around, searching for the one who saved her. Her gaze catches the moment when Nagi leaves the building and she rushes after him, shouting for him to wait just a moment. In the alley, she catches up with him and bows deeply, warmly thanking him for saving her life. Nagi tries to pretend that everything is fine, but Philadelphia looks right through him with absolute focus. She instantly drops a bombshell, asks directly, "Are you the great spirit of water?" It seems the secret identity of our guy was revealed in record time. Philadelphia is in complete shock. She stares into Nagi's eyes and finally understands the truth. She addressed point blank without any hints, is he really the great water spirit? Before he could answer, the rest of the squad gone and Shawnees burst into the room and forcibly drag her back to bed. She is still recovering. They try to think logically, but Philly's elven senses are already ringing with alarm, and Nagi begins to sweat profusely under the pressure he is about to be exposed. Finally, the guy simply accepts his fate and sends confirmation, and Philly immediately goes into a full-fledged fangirl meltdown. She is overwhelmed by the realization that a true deity saved her life. She literally trembles. Nagi manages to catch her before she falls, but at that very moment a new opponent breaks off the fight, rushing into the battle. It is Yushin, the guild leader. He had been eavesdropping the whole time during the revelation. He understands that such a huge lore cannot be discarded just in the middle of the corridor, so he invites the whole group back to the guild for a private conversation. When they are settled in the VIP lounge, the air thickens, the reality of the situation hits mercilessly. Yushin bows deeply, wordlessly showing Nagi colossal respect for covering one of his top adventurers. Our guy begins to tell where this whole journey came from the child calling him. He lays out the chronology of events step by step, from the rescue to the state they are in now. Yushin only breathes a sigh of relief. The children were pulled out of that nightmare, and they are safe. However, Philadelphia still cannot forget one detail. The half-elf could summon a great spirit, and that is outright madness. According to legends, such a mana reserve exists only in high elves. The revelation strikes Yana hard directly, and she stands as if the burden of the whole world has just fallen on her shoulders. To express gratitude, Yushin hands her a huge bag of gold for travel expenses. Nagi is stunned. He had no idea how much the title of Great Spirit really weighs in this world. Yashin essentially writes him a blank check, unlimited, for anything that might be needed. When night falls over the city, the guild building towers above heads under the stars. The streets quiet down, silent like before a verdict. And Nagi watches over the children until they finally get a bit of decent sleep. He is truly grateful that you did not intend to move them into such a top-notch dwelling. Suddenly, Yona approaches him completely exhausted, as if all her strength has been drained. He asks if she finds it hard to fall asleep. And again she bows her head, thanking him. And in her eyes darkness as she tries to find words. She actually apologizes because she was the one who called him, and she feels someone like her should not have such a powerful connection. She clutches her chest. It is noticeable how a huge psychological defeat overwhelms her, since she was mocked and treated like a nobody for so long. Nagi realizes her trauma from the past made her feel unworthy even of his protection. When she sees how she gets nervous because of others' shock, his heart breaks from that state. She literally trembles with guilt, convinced that she is a burden. But Nagi approaches and gently strokes her head, whispering that she has nothing to apologize for. He immediately puts everything in its place. She is his contractor, and she is the one who brought him here. He even covers her with virtuous truth, saying he is glad for her call because it gave him a chance to see the outside world for the first time. These are exactly the words she was waiting for, so she does not hold back. Tears of sincere relief flow on their own. Their moment is broken by a knock on the door. Philly is already standing on the threshold. She apologizes for interrupting her late at night. Yet she carries an urgent message directly from the guild. Nagi feels he is confident that he knows exactly what it is about. The travelers step forward and swear to protect the children at the cost of their own lives while Nagi deals with his affairs. He turns to Yona and says he has to step away for a short time, and she looks devastated when she sees him leave. Her eyes fill with fear. What if he does not return? To seal this, Nagi gives a pinky swear, swearing on his honor that he will return. Finally, this promise tears a genuine smile from her face. Under the glow of the full moon, Nagi makes his way through the deep forest. Inside, it is eerie. He feels a huge presence hiding somewhere in the shadows. He doesn't need much time to track his target. A huge basilisk is already waiting for him. Returning to the guild, Yushin explained that this monster is a complete nightmare with an almost impenetrable body. Nagi had already put everything together and finally understood. It was the same beast that earlier caused Philly's team to clash. The scouts reported even worse news. They encountered a second one, a female about to give birth. These two basilisks are heading straight for the city to find food, and the guild has already set a 20 million gold reward for their heads. Yushin literally begged Nagi on his knees, "Pelagro and save the city." Nagi does this not only for the sake of money. He knows, if he does not intervene, innocent people will simply be slaughtered. Yushin is so agitated that he promises to retell Naga's legend to every future generation. Returning to the present time, Nagi enters hunting mode, preparing to act immediately. Two huge creatures emerge from the trees, looking like prehistoric basilisks, and it seems as if they are about to clear the lobby. One basilisk immediately fixes its prey with a gaze. Its eyes emit a deadly pressure. The boy understands that his petrifying evil gaze will not work here in human form, so he switches to a set better suited for fighting a boss at high stakes. He begins to release a colossal amount of mana and transforms into a majestic water dragon because he needs a form that will be even more powerful. He tears through the air without any delay, and a shimmering water trail follows him. He soars above the forest and mocks, as if saying if he has to fight, then at least in a form that looks beautiful. The two basilisks realize they have attracted the attention of a creature they cannot match, and above them looms a huge dragon. They try to look scary, but everything is clear without words. Their hands tremble from such a level of power, and they are drenched in sweat. Nagi does not let them recover. He releases a devastating breath attack, and the lobby instantly clears to emptiness. An energy beam hits one of the snakes right in the mouth, and its defenses immediately give way. An incredible amount of mana frightens to the point of trembling. Everything flashes with a dazzling light and cuts through the entire forest. The explosion creates craters in the ground and tears everything around as if the soil was crumpled and folded. Even Nagi is a bit bewildered by the destruction. He admits that the power is greater than he expected. One of the basilisks tries to break free from the awkwardness and apologize while his partner is simply torn to pieces, but Nagi does not let them off the hook so easily. The remaining snake goes into hysteria, screams that it cannot allow you to escape, and launches its last strike. She spins a giant water vortex, trying to trap our guy in a liquid prison. The water bubbles and wildly churns as the basilisk pours everything left into the spell. When the fog clears, Nagi is again in human form, looking completely unscathed, and heads toward the fallen beast. The massive basilisk is officially out of the game, lying motionless on the forest floor. He reaches out and touches the scales, making sure the kill is real. He notices another woman with a swollen belly and quietly says, "Sorry," and the guild leader looks at this and freezes in pure shock. Nagi calmly reports that the request has been fulfilled, not even suspecting that a guild member is lurking in the shadow of the trees. He is going all out, carelessly giving the order to the hidden scout to take care of the body removal. The guild member freezes in amazement. Nagi stealthily and swiftly sneaks up while preparing to return to the city. Returning to the guild office, the boss loses his composure. He had no idea that this task would be cleared so quickly. He falls to his knees in a deep bow, thanks Nagi for saving the city, and extends a huge pile of gold. Nagi stared at the loot, and a thought buzzed in his head: this is an incredible amount. But the real trick and victory is in the next gift, an item box bag, which allows the user to carry an infinite amount of luggage. Nagi is truly amazed by its usefulness. He already sees that now he can store as many items as he wants. The old man hasn't finished yet and pulls the next reward from his pocket. It is an official plaque that means one thing: Nagi is now a fourth-class traveler. Nagi looks at the rank in surprise, and the boss explains, although he deserves the first class, the fourth is the highest he can issue right now. Outside, the guild servants are already loading a huge serpent onto a cart for full evaluation. Nagi finds polite words of thanks for everything and begins to prepare for departure. He grabs his new magic bag and wonders whether it is worth returning immediately back to the lake. When the sun sets over the town, Nagi starts gathering troubling rumors. He knows that basilisks usually live far from people, so he wonders why they are approaching so close to the city. Nagi freezes and thinks, were they deliberately moved to ignite a crisis? He stands alone on the street for a moment and feels an even bigger conspiracy is about to flare up. But dark thoughts are cut off as soon as he sees Philly and the children waiting for him in front of the inn. They could not wait for his return and stubbornly insisted, let them meet him personally. The children look at him with pure eyes of admiration and shout, "Lord Neji, welcome home." Our guy finally breaks the solemn seriousness and smiles in response, "I'm home." He is completely surrounded by children, a friendly, sincere embrace that makes it hard to breathe. He orders them to prepare. Tomorrow they set off on a journey to his lake. He depicts the lake as a quiet paradise where dark elves live happily. He is confident the children will immediately find their place, as each of them has already experienced similar hardships. Philly and her company stand aside, and their faces show that they are thinking about something truly important. Philadelphia approaches closer and her voice barely trembles as she says she is simply glad he has returned alive and safe. She adds that they owe him a debt of gratitude, one they will never truly be able to repay. Taking a deep breath, she says, "Lord Nagi, I have a request." She asks if her entire squad can accompany him on the journey. She explains that she wants to repay his kindness and be useful to him. The nearby boys jump up after her rushing to follow and swearing to protect the city and the children. The children are bursting with energy, shouting, encouraging each other because their older sister is already traveling with them. Nagi notices that the kids have fully warmed up and have already accepted the group. Philadelphia and the boys bow low, humbly begging for permission to join. Nagi extends his hand, accepts them, and thanks for the offer. "From now on, I will count on you," he says with a gentle smile. Philly looks as if she just won the lottery. Joy flashes on her face. The whole rest of the day, the company prepares and then visits the local tailor for new gear. The children are simply incredibly cute in their new travel clothes. The townspeople gather to say goodbye, and one woman even tightly hugs Nagi, tearfully thanking him for saving their lives. Philly and the team stand by the wagon, ready for the road, looking like a true adventuring gang. Nagi accepts the last heavy payment for the basilisk materials. Yashin, the head of the guild, comes outside to personally see them off. He tells Nagi to come anytime and promises an even bigger celebration for his next visit. Nagi jumps on the cart and asks if everyone is ready to go. After the last shout, "All right, so let's go," the group sets off to the lake to start a new life. The squad officially sets off from Ilmus to the lake, flying over a dense forest, and some mysterious bird quietly chatters in the shade. Honestly, it's so pleasant to watch the children burning with excitement as they admire the landscapes on the way to the next location, the city of Ronin. While they are on the road, Gandon and Shauna's work as the party's tanks, teaching the little ones the most essential self-defense. Meanwhile, Nagi checks the magical talent and sees Yona and Rut are practically high-level combat units still in the process of maturing. He begins to show them how to control the elements, thereby helping to unlock the potential of this spirit magic. Philly and our guy hold themselves like proud parents, teaching the kids the basics while they sleep under the stars. Now he just hopes for a comfortable bed as soon as they reach the city, but the gacha gods are definitely not on his side today. As soon as they peek into the local inn, the manager immediately stops them, shouting, "Sorry, everything is booked for today, look elsewhere." It turned out Ronin is packed to the brim. They were officially pushed away from all places in the city without exception. Even Gandon and Shanna look as if, after failing to find a single manor for rent, they were dragged through an exhausting dungeon run. This is a complete dead end, and the team is already beginning to realize hospitality in this city is nowhere to be found and won't be found at all. Yona tries not to lose dignity. He tells Lord Nagiu that they are fine sleeping in filth like a bunch of ordinary grunts. Just as they are about to give up, a local boy starts wandering near them as if deliberately drawing attention to himself and trying to hook the enemies. The team switches to combat mode in an instant, as if ready to take down anyone who dares to approach. But it turns out the scared kid insists that he is not suspicious at all. Nagi immediately senses the tension in the team and softens the tone, saying they are just travelers and don't know the local layout. The boy's face lights up and he offers to lead them to a secret place. He shouts, "Follow me." Philadelphia is completely and deservedly drenched in sweat because she followed a random NPC into a dark alley. And Nagi gives her the same signature smile of the main heroine and a promise, "I will protect you if things go sideways." Another part of the party is so moved that they practically swear an oath to him for their entire lives, too much even for our guy. The boy leads them all the way to the outskirts and finally stops near a building that looks far too secluded. They are greeted by a kind-hearted woman named Marina. She welcomes them despite the huge size of the whole group. She assures them that they don't need to worry, there are plenty of beds here. It turns out this is an orphanage run by the religion Sarah. They focus on saving the weak and helping those in need. Nagi feels a little guilty for crashing into the charity house, but he firmly knows everything must be brought to light so that the resident children do not feel threatened by a whole bunch of armed adventurers. He tries to stay calm, introduces himself, and presents himself and his team as harmless travelers. Nagi explains to the children that they are nearby refugees looking for a safe place to live. Yona steps forward and delivers a speech that tightens the heart. She addresses the other orphans and says that Lord Nagi and the others are truly good people who genuinely care about them. She promises that they will be well behaved as soon as they are allowed to stay for one night. The way Yona bravely acts for the whole group is truly impressive. It strikes Nagi right in the heart. The local kids instantly catch on to this idea. They break into wide smiles and gladly welcome their new friends. Nagi gently pats Yona on the head for doing well. Philadelphia shines with pride and thanks Yona for the courage to speak her mind. Approaching as a whole squad, they bow to Marina, officially asking for shelter for the night. Nagi does not intend to be a freeloader, so he hands Marina a heavy bag of gold, one that would make any gacha whale turn green with envy. Marina is stunned by the amount, but Nagi insists that this is an honest exchange for her kindness. When the funding was secured, Marina turns fully and prepares a luxurious banquet dish as if it were brought straight from an elite tavern. Philly bursts in to help with the cooking and carefully watches to make sure everyone is full. During dinner, Marina admits that most of the shelter workers have fled to more profitable jobs and now she has to carry the entire burden herself. Nagi asks Marina about Sarah's religion and she replies, their focus is on helping those in need. Marina says their faith is based on the goddess of water and water spirits, as well as on kings who are to come. For Nagi, this is a giant lore jackpot, literally the king of the water spear, whom these people worship. He sits in place and sweats, feeling incredible impatience while everyone praises their own divine aura. When Marina notices that he has stopped eating, she asks if he is already full. She honestly says she leaves food for later so that the children can eat properly when everyone returns tomorrow. The orphans are inspired by her dedication and vow to work twice as hard to support her and help. Marina cannot hold back tears. Their care breaks her chest because she finally understands she is not alone in this struggle. Nagi looks at this warm moment and clearly realizes he needs to act because he feels himself before their true deity. That night, when Marina prays to the Spirit King, begging for protection, Meggy decides it's time to intervene. She unleashes her power. Drops of water weave into a whirlwind in the air, obedient to her will. Marina is completely stunned. Thoughts drag as if in viscous silence when a great spirit appears in her room. Nagi, acting through the water spirit, tells her straight from the depths of his soul that her selfless deeds have touched him to the very heart. He presents her with a spirit stone, a high-level artifact worth an entire settlement. He tells her that his most cherished wish is for the children to be happy, so he urges her to sell the stone. Marina cannot believe her luck. She bows low and asks how she can ever repay such heavenly grace. Nagi's message is concise and clear. Protect the children and love them, that will be your reward. That same morning, Nagi and his team prepare to depart. He gives Marina a final supportive word, asks her not to stop and to continue doing everything within her power. When they leave, Marina looks as if she has had a full stat reset, brighter and more determined than ever. Nagi approaches the crew and immediately figures out what the next move will be. Gon and Shawnees were snooping around the guild looking for clues, checking the weather and watching to make sure no fierce monsters were lurking on the roads. They even managed to rent a mansion for the next 3 days so the team can finally rest in luxury. But just as everything begins to settle, that creepy raven from the past starts watching Nagi closely from the trees. The bird actually spoke and clearly said, "We will meet very soon." Nagi was completely baffled. He couldn't understand what kind of strange creature it was at all. The raven flies toward a mysterious room where a hidden figure watches everything that is happening. This mysterious boss watches Nagi through a crystal ball, revealing that he knows his biggest secret. He is a reincarnator from Japan. Neji and Gand investigate the path to the lake, when suddenly everything goes awry. The guild is buzzing with rumors. Monsters along the highway have become too aggressive. The tension only grows when they start swearing that a black dragon was spotted over the neighboring city. Gon realizes this is not some trash mob. Dragons are considered noble creatures who are almost never shown to humans. And yet he reads the risk from what awaits next. If they leave now, it will be a colossal threat to the children they are responsible for. Suddenly, the guild scribe calls everyone's attention to the notice board. The reception manager is completely drenched in sweat as she announces an outbreak of monster activity. After a full investigation, they finally realized the situation is far scarier than they had imagined. This is not a minor skirmish. Before them is a monster that has gone on a rampage, or such a critical crush from which there is no escape. To prevent the village from being doubled over, the guild summons all adventurers of level 5 and above. Let them go to the front lines. They promise a solid stack of 100,000 losses to everyone who joins the conquest squad. Nagi does not hesitate for a second and asks Gandhi, is he ready to join the front lines? He tells the others to stay behind and protect the children while they take on the hard work. Yenda naturally worries, what if Nagi rushes into the fire? Nagi only gives him that calm smile of the MC and explains that this is the only way to clear the path for their journey. He is essentially completing a speed quest so that the rest can finally feel safe. They are heading to the registration zone, where a huge crowd of players has already gathered. Nagi immediately notices Frio and Elf, who reacts to the slightest shade of that crazy spirit aura that Nagi emits. They are met by a 4th-rank pilot named Fail. He looks like he is about to tear something in the air and cause trouble. Nagi introduces himself as a rank 4 water mage, but we all know perfectly well, his stats are far beyond the chart. Guildmaster Jild steps onto the stage and authoritatively demands absolute silence. He warns, if anyone cannot keep secrets, let them leave the lobby immediately. The air in the room suddenly chills and everyone freezes, waiting for the revelation. He drops a bombshell and immediately an detonator rushes to the entire village. The name alone sends a wave of panic among experienced adventurers. This monster is a subspecies of subdragon, 10 meters of pure aggression, known as the gluttonous demon that crawls on the ground. It was a high-level threat. It constantly scared other monsters and drove them away from its own territory. The plan is simple: deploy a defensive line and stop this tank before it reaches the residential quarters. Jill admits, although everything is slow, if the line breaks, the disaster will become irreversible. Meanwhile, the stronger fighters begin to introduce themselves here as Narj, a rank 2 spearman who looks like pure power. And also the twins, Luo and Neo. They take on the roles of healer and fencer, supported by magic. Frio tries to introduce himself, but this guy is really trembling in his own boots. He is a user of wind magical art, and now he is overwhelmed by outright fear just because he is near Naga's presence. The Guildmaster distributes intelligence reports so the squad can start theory crafting. Character First Iron Gate Reform School. Everyone takes a sheet to examine the boss's combat attack patterns. Nagi and his new team reviewed the data and realized, this trial will be neither easy nor transparent. Narj stands up and declares that they need to choose a leader for the raid right now. The group agrees, a person with high rank and charisma is needed to keep them from destruction. Most veteran adventurers are too nervous to take the lead. Immediately rejects Narj's candidacy, noting how well he has already led the group. Another team picks up the attack. Narj scrutinizes carefully to see if anyone objects, especially considering that a rank 1 player is in the room. Amid friendly applause, Narj officially accepts the title of raid leader. Nagi is actually waiting for the moment to see how these experienced travelers coordinate their actions. He decides not to show his true strength until the situation escalates into a full emergency. When the meeting breaks up, Narge reminds everyone, the real slaughter begins tomorrow. Frio, still in fan mode for Nagi, offers to host the entire group at his place. Nagi tries to politely refuse, but his friends are waiting for him. But Frio does not accept no and insists that Nagi bring the whole team to his huge estate. When they return, Philadelphia is hysterical because Nagi has signed up for a suicide mission. Jen just brushes it off because he knows he can't stop Naga's sincere gaze no matter how hard he tries. At that very moment, Frio and Fail appear at the door. He leads the guy to the mansion. Nagi explains the situation to Philly and introduces his new comrades. Fail is simply happy to be able to be nearby on this trip. Frio truly feels a deep honor that a person of Naga's caliber has come under his roof. Late that night, the girls wonder why Frio treats Nagi as if he were a true god. Nagi decides to no longer hide the truth and reveals he is a great water spirit. He explains his mission to reach the lake and tells why he so fervently protects the children. Frio breaks down in tears of mercy, unable to hold himself back. Fail suddenly understands everything. Naga's mysterious presence finally makes clear sense. She admits that she followed him because she knew in advance was not a random traveler. They firmly shake each other's hands and swear to bring the conquest to success so that Nagi can reach his destination. In the morning, the children and Philly wave them goodbye and pray for their safety. Alongside trusted comrades, Nagi steps forward to confront the dragon. Everyone is sweating buckets. The extermination of the Adantator is finally beginning. The magic unit takes position to intercept the enemy's attention and support the front line while the rest of the crew deploys the defensive perimeter. Our Nagi is not just standing, he is unfolding the battlefield, initiating high-level preparation with terraforming. He has no lag at all. He controls water and earth, laying out a huge zone of destruction under the enemy's feet. Next, he throws a giant trap at the spot, which looks like a pure ecological disaster for any boss. The terrain here is clayey, so the trap is perfect. If someone steps on the ground once and when it hardens it can no longer be bent. When the magic circles are already prepared and the defensive line is set, the tension in the air becomes heavy, a continuous, sticky anticipation. The squad receives an order to rest. The scout's report sounds confident. The real raid will begin at dawn. While Nagi relaxes casually, Neo and Luo, twins, approach him and look completely stunned by his magic. They have a serious request. They want to borrow some of his time as soon as this mission is completed. The twins utter a mysterious phrase, "There is someone we want you to meet." Nagi instantly picks up on this now. He wonders who exactly might be behind this invitation. These two are so desperate that they literally fall at his feet and beg him to agree to the meeting. Nagi carefully examines the room looking for any red flag, but the local vibe is felt. Everything is 100% genuine. He still agrees to meet their contact, but now he must focus on the main event tomorrow. In the morning it strikes and the ground begins to shake so much that the entire map tilts. A powerful foot the size of a mountain stomps down. This is the signal that the attentater has arrived. This idiotic fat trust rushes straight at the city like a battering bullet with no brakes. It instantly breaks stone walls as if they were wet paper, demonstrating a terrifying sweep of pure, wild power. The boss heads straight to the trap in Naga's swampy area. As soon as she steps into the fight, the team triggers the trap. The giant turtle sinks into the swamp and looks as if it has finally been caught in the CC chain. Some of the low-level mobs in this party are already confidently counting victory in their pocket, but veteran raiders know better. This fight is just heating up. The monster finally begins to break through the mud, and the mages are forced to deploy explosive mines. A gigantic explosion shakes the entire territory. Debris flies in all directions, as if torn apart by the impact itself. Even Nagi must shield himself from the shockwaves as the battlefield turns into a complete zone of total war. When the smoke clears, the monster still stands in place as if that explosive blast of damage didn't even touch it. The team panics, shouting, "What?" But even that no longer has any effect. A Dantator growls so painfully that the scream really hurts. Protective barriers shatter lengthwise and crosswise. Nagi instantly realizes the front will be completely wiped out now, so he raises a gigantic water vortex. "I set a barrier instead of a wall," he shouts, moving forward to enter a defensive phase himself. Thanks to MC's flawless calm, the physical attackers still rush into the attack, trying to land several precise strikes. They swing giant blades and axes, trying to find a weak spot in that thick armor. They accelerate heavy attacks to the limit, but the boss's health bar barely moves. Nagi just watches as everything rapidly goes to hell. The monster's fierce roar is so terrifying that it literally knocks the adventurer's lower floor out of the game. Frio, an elf mage, understands. He will lose the deal, so he tries to buy time, summoning a giant golem. Time is short. This stone tank crashes into the boss, holding the line. It lands a heavy blow, but the attentater is too much of a brute. The golem completely falls apart with one counterattack in Frio, and the others are left wide open. The monster charges up for a finishing blow that would clear the entire hall. But Nagi calmly steps forward and says to Frio, "I'll handle the rest." He begins to gather a colossal amount of mana, and a giant water dragon starts to form in the air. The water spirit looms over the battlefield, spreading an aura of divine level, chilling the skin. Nagi releases the spell, and the dragon bursts forward without any delay. It's a direct hit. A huge wave of water completely crushes the attentator's defense. The monster absorbs the raging vortex of pure elemental power. As soon as the rain begins to fall, the dust settles and it becomes clear. The beast is completely neutralized. The maimed hunters begin to wake up in shock because their wounds are actually healed by a mystical rain. No one can comprehend how the top boss just took off and disappeared. They frantically look around for an answer, completely clueless about what power you just demonstrated. Our guy decides to withhold access to his true identity. He raises the spirit stone and insists that he was just lucky. He tells them, "It seems the great water spirit took pity on me and helped," and the whole group unconditionally believes it. They head back to the guild to celebrate the victory properly, with a huge feast. The only one not around is Gant. Right now he is at home in Frio, suffering from a terrible hangover. As soon as the quest is completed, Nagi remembers the promise he made to the twins. They lead him to the outskirts of the city and keep insisting that their master is watching his every step. In the deep forest, they are met by a lonely hut too modest for someone who, according to rumors, is extremely important. But as soon as Neo and Lua approach the door, it immediately becomes clear this is a magical portal. They activate a high-level teleportation circle, and the whole room explodes with blinding light. Nagi steps forward and finds himself in a luxurious hall, where a mysterious figure is already waiting for him. A gray-haired old man with a legendary beard greets him and calls him the Great Spirit of Water. Then he drops the main lore bomb and, naming Naga's real name from a past life, cuts through the air. Saejima Nagi, isn't that right? The tension in the room breaks the very second the old man throws a giant lore bomb. It becomes clear that he knows the real name of our guy Saejima Nagi. Before Nagi can even realize how the old man knows his secret, he begins to draw glowing kanji in the air to reveal his own identity. It turns out he is not some random NPC. He is his compatriot from Japan, Agatsuma Yuuki. And the spectacle cannot be denied its luxury, as if he is boasting about his premium gacha effects just to make an entrance. He stands like a legendary unit level, and finally gives a name to the face. Vale completely loses composure, shouts in Japanese as if she just noticed a glitch in the Matrix. The twins Luo and Neo are simply told, go play while the adults talk about their business. But the sage does not try to be a nuisance. Snapping his fingers, he conjures a whole full set of high tea as if out of nowhere. Nagi falls into a stupor and the physical engine practically gives up. It turns out this legendary sage is not so scary, you just need to step over his frightening appearance, and suddenly his playfulness awakens. While they are drinking tea, the sage dumps heavy knowledge about the timeline on the interlocutors and says, about 300 years have already passed in this world, so here you have a sage of prophecy. Returning to Japan, he was an ordinary businessman, and he was simply thrown into another world without any warning. Here mathematics starts to twist my brain. Nagi left Earth in 2033, but Sage went in 2024. Despite the fact that on Earth there is only a 9-year difference between them, the Sage has been sharpening his life here for centuries. This is a colossal time distortion. 9 years in our world equals 300 years in this one. This is a pure lag spike in the spacetime continuum. The sage reveals Nagi is actually already the 4th reincarnator who broke into this server, and apparently he still remains the most broken. But he explains that people from Japan appear every few decades like agents of change. Essentially, this is a global way to forcefully push a new update so that everything continues to be interesting. He has been practicing his clairvoyance for years to keep the moment of Naga's arrival in his sights. Do you remember that creepy crow that was snooping around our guy? That was Sage trying to get in touch. He apologizes, as if the spiritual connection is like trying to stream something on a single Wi-Fi bar. Nagi finally understands the bird was not a threat, just an ultra-slow messenger keeping pace with the delay. After all this, hearing the word smartphone again, and Nagi is moved to tears. Without hesitation, we take on other players. The first is the legendary hero Takashi Mitoba, who founded an entire kingdom even before he died. In fact, he was the MVP of his era. He created the Takasol Kingdom. There is another type now. He just hangs out on a tropical island, living it up while everyone else pulls hard work. Here is the whole difference. One builds a nation and the other only dreams of eternal vacations. But when the sage asks Nagi for a colossal favor regarding the twins, the game suddenly becomes truly serious. It turned out that Neo and Lua are not just random mages. They are the only princes left from the magical kingdom of Lunatia, which fell. Back then, the place flourished until 18 years ago when it was erased from the map. The old sage has been raising them in secret since an old friend brought them to him as infants. These children are an almost ready team with a high ceiling of mastery. They themselves cannot handle magic without support, but together, when they combine their powers, they can cast large-scale spells, the kind usually only a whole raid team can manage. The sage wants Nagi to take them along on the journey because their social skills have completely burned out after years of isolation. He has seen the future and knows Nagi is the key to how they will weave connections with other people. He even bows to our guy, so sincerely does he care about the growth of his student. Look how this legendary sage got excited. It immediately becomes clear that he is not just a cold-blooded genius. And Nagi feels how much love the sage has for these two, so he cannot refuse. He makes a vow here and now because he has that wild power. He will use it to save anyone within his reachable space. This is a pure protagonist shot so much so that the sage looks truly grateful. And before everyone sets off, the sage utters a few pieces of advice, subtly hinting Nagi must teach magic to other children as well. And now the hardest part, saying goodbye. The twins officially join the party and accept Nagi as their new master. The sage reminds them they can teleport back to visit at any moment, so this is by no means a farewell forever. The children finally force a smile and instantly realize that their new adventure has just begun. Then the sage shifts his gaze to Fail and asks if she will really follow Nagi. He foresees she did not linger by accident, she has her own well-hidden reasons. Nagi does not feel a trace of malice in her, so he calmly allows her to stay close and stick together on the road. Fail is all aflutter with excitement and declares that she came only to prevent Nagi from doing whatever he wants. This is classic tsundere behavior, and the whole group just laughs it off and nullifies everything. The sage watches them leave and prays that happiness will set out with our boy on his journey. The new party is officially formed. Luo, Neo, and Fail have joined the squad. Fail is already taking control of the situation and establishing contact with the younger children, behaving as if she is the big sister. Even the twins are beginning to open up, though they are still getting used to the strange fact. People stubbornly point out that they have the same face and hair. Nagi definitely thanks Frio for all the help and in return gives her a water spirit as a familiar. When everything is settled, they gather the cart and set off toward the next city. But the mood changes instantly as the scene cuts to a dark landscape. People have really managed to catch the black dragon and bind it with bright chains. A continuous nightmare spectacle, and he is by no means happy that he has been locked up. It spews an internal curse and promises to destroy every person it sees. If this is what awaits Nagi in the next zone, our guy must be ready for a real boss fight. And in a moment, the party arrives at Mariel, a lively city right on the border. It was a long month of travels, so Nagi decides, let the camp stay here for 10 days so everyone's endurance bars can recover. But while the rest of the squad catches a few minutes of sleep, Naga's internal radar starts beeping continuously, and a heavy feeling of fear immediately overwhelms him. He looks out the window and notices a giant vortex of dark energy wildly swirling in the night sky. The videos are already hopelessly corrupted, and Nagi feels a wave of merciless pain and hatred erupting from the source. He is curious, but until he has protection for his comrades, he does not intend to go on a solo mission. He performs a pure pro-gamer trick and calls a powerful water spirit to hold the positions. This cute little energetic Forsuiko immediately greets Nagi as a father before getting to her post. Once the base is securely fixed, Nagi slips into the night, tracking that dark presence all the way to the basement of a nearby mansion. He understands the target is hidden deep underground, behind several layers of magical protection. Nagi has no time for stealth mode, so he simply smashes the barrier like glass. He falls into the deepest part of the pit and meets the gaze of a literal nightmare. A mighty and terrible creature is chained to the spot. It is bound by shining chains, and an aura of unconditional power tears the space around. This is a dark dragon, and even in a weakened state, the pressure it exerts is simply incredible. The beast is called Diazotis, and Nagi calmly reveals himself a mighty spirit of water. This burly beast is already on the edge. It admits that it no longer has the strength to even move its wings. He says that he once lived in the demonic abyss until humans committed a dirty treachery. While he was hunting, they stole his egg and used it as bait to lure Diazotis into a trap. Now he is bound by dragon chains and spells that simply rot his soul. The dragon finally broke. With a hoarse last breath, he begged Nagi to save my child from the hands of those arrogant people. Nagi is not going to treat the legendary creature like an ordinary mob, so he offers to heal wounds that no longer respond to treatment. Diazotis stubbornly insists that it is impossible, but Nagiai's magic is a different matter. It instantly restores the dragon's health. The dragon stared at him as if it had just seen the gacha god descend. Nagi does not stop. He grabs the legendary shackles and tears them from the ground without the slightest hesitation, as if they weigh nothing. Diazotis broke out in a sweat, crushed by the power of this spirit just as it devalued the cursed seal. To escape, Nagi doesn't even think about the stairs. He simply breaks a huge hole right through the mansion's roof. When the dragon takes off into the sky, Nagi must calm the hot-tempered dragon not to level the city, because his friends are still sleeping there. Then they fly to the palace in the next city, where the egg is kept in captivity. Nagi realizes if the dragon rushes into attack, it will only draw attention to itself and he will be captured again, so he decides to go in alone in his spirit form. He transforms into a tiny drop of water and slips past the elite guards patrolling the corridors. He manages to reach the treasury unnoticed, and there he gets the main plot twist. There are not one but two eggs hidden inside. Nagi instantly understands that he cannot pass the eggs through walls as he does with his body, so he decides to protect them both. He launches a colossal diversionary attack, floods the entire treasury, and bursts out of the building on a real tidal wave, like on a board. He finds the dragon and hands over the loot, but Daya's Oda notices something strange. One of the eggs goes to a black sacred creature, named Narsh, a being rumored to bring insane wealth and fame. Suddenly, the egg bursts with light and drains the Naga's mana. As they return to the city, the dragon looks back and asks how exactly he can repay such a colossal debt. Nagi only barely smiles, already spinning a plan for his new dragon ally. Nagi and the cat girl immediately notice. The city is too noisy, almost unsettling. Our guy feels the mood betraying them, so he decides to dash to the lake earlier than planned. Philly writhes with tension over logistics and reminds, crossing the border without permission is almost a death sentence for their plans. Nagi doesn't worry for a moment and immediately gives orders, the squad to disperse and secure at least a month's worth of food. He puts Luo and Neo to work to get enough high-quality materials and build 3 huge houses for the whole team. While Philadelphia involves others in preparing new clothes, Nagi decides to involve Agro in the hardest task, finding professional builders. He heads straight to the guild, hoping to find a master carpenter who won't be scared off by a bit of moving. As soon as he steps onto the streets, his high-level perception begins to sting like an alarm signal. From everywhere rolls a giant wave of distorted energy and malice, seeping from the surrounding buildings. The dark aura is so thick it is almost visible. To him it smells like pure corruption. He begins to pick up psychic echoes of half-people who are illegally turned into slaves. The word slaves hits him like a debuff, and his face instantly grows cold. He realizes, right beneath his feet, people are locked up and suffering in some secret prison. He is overwhelmed by a psychic flare, frightened children scream for help, and this is the boundary our guy must not cross. Nagi, without hesitating for a second, activates his spirit powers and pierces the cobblestones as if they were made of air. Eventually, he finds himself in a dark, wet sewer as if it were a map of an elite prison. The stagnant air confirms this without a doubt. For anyone trapped here, it is a complete nightmare. Most people in cages are total trash mobs, the same ones that seem to be meant to grow there. Then he notices an elf and a gnome. Their energy rings with purity, so it becomes clear they were set up. Elf convict catches the Naga spirit, and it pulls screams from sudden breaths. The great spirit begins to exhale haps. He begs for salvation, and the voice cuts off and trembles. Pure despair tears words into pieces. As soon as the rumor that the Great Spirit has appeared spreads through the dungeon, all other corridors explode with chaos. A rude fool from the neighboring cell orders him to shut up, humiliating innocent prisoners as if they were dirt. Nadzi does not do that. He instantly sprays the boy with a concentrated stream of water, and he falls silent. The Great Spirit reveals its physical form, starts breaking locks, and orders everyone to be silent. Someone is already heading here. The gnome is stunned but still honestly admits, even if they are freed, they simply have nowhere to go. Nagi only laughs in the corner and asks, as if casually but extremely importantly, if you had somewhere to go, would you want to leave? The gnome understands that Nagi is serious and admits aloud, he will do everything to break out of this pit. Then he explains that they have lost everything and have no chance to survive outside. Our homeland was taken from us, he laments, and at the same time shows his hands, clearly made for blacksmithing. Nadzi tells them his plan for the lake and offers a place in his new settlement. He throws out a phrase that would make any protagonist turn green with pride. There is no homeland, so we will create it. Of course, he adds a bit of sarcasm like a true greedy gamer. He openly admits that what he really needs is for them to build him huge houses. The prisoners are filled with gratitude, and even the fluffiest half-humans beg to join the celebration. Suddenly, a real criminal raises a cry, pleading to make a raising, and promises that they also know how to craft something. Their appearance is simply pitiful. They begged Nagi to take them away from deserved punishment. The gnome warns Nagi, these guys are heavy criminal slaves who must be avoided at all costs. Nagi quickly scanned the room and immediately noticed one boy at the end. He truly has a pure heart. He passes through the bars and asks this boy why someone like him ended up in such a place. The poor guy nods and frankly admits he was framed for a crime his best friend who took both his money and his girlfriend. Meggy decides that enough is enough and cuts him off. You don't belong here. He sharply grabs the innocent boy and freezes, ready to make a move, while other criminals continue to tear the silence with howling. Nagi, with one clean move, releases a giant tidal wave and with the same sweep washes away the new team from the dungeon. Trash mobs hit the bars, slap and cling with their paws, but they themselves cannot figure out why they are stubbornly denied relief. Nagi looked back, not a drop of pity in her gaze, and said, "You brought this upon yourselves." He leaves him behind and throws a cold warning: they need to be properly punished for their real crimes. Finally, the group goes outside and breathes the fresh city air again. The gnome is already gaining speed. He promised to build as many houses for Nagi as he wants in their new homeland. The rabbit and the half-human cat also prepare for work. They promise to give their all to repay his kindness. Nagi comes to the conclusion, essentially he has just adopted an entire village of people and now they have nowhere to go. He assures them that everything is fine and promises to introduce them to his other comrades. When the main group sees the refugees, Philly and the girls almost cry from the poignant, tragic stories of their escape. Nagi shifts his gaze to the poisonous miasma spreading through the city and tightens his conclusion: time is running out. Philadelphia dryly notes that local merchants are already starting to close their shops before logistics fail completely. Nagi makes a decision to spend one more, last day in the city to gather everything necessary for daily life. The sun rises over their last morning, and the town looks like an empty hall inhabited by ghosts. The pedestrian flow has dropped to zero, and Nagi notices, even his gold no longer pulls as before. Suddenly, the silence of the street is pierced by a loud voice announcing that the shop is almost closing. Nagi examines the local shop when the saleswoman Almina rushes towards him with open arms. It is cramped here with all sorts of things from ordinary loot to high-level magical artifacts. And suddenly the crystal ball on the shelf flares up as if about to reach its maximum. Almina explains that this rare item is made to react to the presence of spirits. It turns out the brighter the light, the closer or even more powerful the spirit. The ball literally explodes nuclear style. Its blinding flash almost completely bleaches the entire shop. Almina cannot believe her own eyes when all this simply turns into a small sun before her eyes. Realizing that he can no longer hide it, our guy drops a bomb. Actually, I am a great spirit, very powerful. The revelation proves unbearable for Almina's mind. She headlong falls face first onto the floor. In a moment she finally opens her eyes and freezes, completely stunned by the truth. Just as her thoughts gather together, she can't hold back. She wipes her nose and mutters, "Why does a mighty spirit hide in a human shop?" Nagi lays out the plan to move to the lake, and Almina instantly understands. For daily needs, they will require a serious supply line. She doesn't miss a second. "Then why won't the logistics remain with me?" she asks immediately. Finally, she admits, today she was going to close the shop. She had to move anyway. She almost begged, so begging with words, "Allow me to join you, Lord Nagi." To sweeten the deal, she promises as a bonus to take absolutely every item from her inventory. As soon as the merchant class was unlocked, Almina officially joins the party the very next day. And then the team finally leaves Mariel behind and sets off into the forest to reach their new base as quickly as possible. While everyone tries not to go too far beyond the boundaries, Nagi says, actually he has already met a person who is special to him. Suddenly, a giant shadow looms over the entire sky, and everyone's chest freezes. A huge black dragon descends through the sky, and its aura of pure power instantly knocks everyone out of their composure. The scale of the creature is terrifying to the bone, and the rest immediately scream from fear as soon as they see the legendary black dragon. Everyone recognizes in it the monster that has been increasingly spotted lately and which terrorizes the region. But Nagi steps forward evenly and unhurriedly and explains, Diatotus is a victim who tried to return the child kidnapped by humans. The dragon lowers its head low and addresses them directly. "I have come today to thank Nagi for saving my life and my child's." Nagi shifts her gaze to the massive eye of the dragon and immediately understands. Nearby is the best mount for fast travel. When the rest of the group fainted from pure shock, the dragon creates a water bubble to safely transport everyone. They rise into the sky and fly through the clouds as if they had no lag at all. Diatotes approaches Nagi, quickly checking that the flight is not too turbulent. Only little Yona, without fainting, notices. The dragon truly has very gentle eyes. Nagi tells her about the family of dark elves waiting for them by the lake, and about the hope that she will befriend a boy named Helio. Yona blushes. She is trembling with emotion. Finally, a place has appeared that can be called home. While they clear the path line, the dragon notices their target. Yona's eyes flash as soon as she sees the water and she exclaims, "Incredible, this is beautiful." The dragon quietly descends and lands right on the shore of Lord Naga's lake. Diathotis officially settles his debt, saying to Lord Nagi, "I have fulfilled the promise." Lord Nagi thanks her for the help and Yona flies off into the sunset. After they woke those who had fainted among the trash mobs, the entire squad gathers near the wagons. Suddenly, dark elves Etna and Helio jump out of the bushes, stunned. Their lord has returned. They patiently waited for him, but the crowd he brought with him confused them. As soon as they notice the people, they immediately activate defense. Nagi steps forward and vouches for them. He says all these people are good and would never do anything to harm you. The party members begin to introduce themselves. Gand and Shaunus come out first. Almina and Felix also step forward and tell how Nagi rescued them from a dark fate. Nagi addresses the elves and asks if everyone can live together by the lake. Etna smiles and nods, agreeing, working together is the best way forward. He invites everyone to return to his home for tea and a proper greeting. Nagi thanks Etna for such a warm welcome, finally feeling as if the gacha gods have blessed him with a good team. Yona immediately runs up to Helio to introduce herself with a smile and a voice saying, "Here I am." She also pulls along her younger brother Rudo, let him join the fun without excuses. The kids are already getting along with each other, and the whole scene is so warmly kind that it makes the eyes sting. Even the rougher-looking members of this group manage to quickly find common ground with the locals. But Nagi immediately notices monsters circling overhead and instantly understands. Such a large pack can draw the attention of nearby threats. He covers the water with his palm and directs his power. He unfolds a giant protective barrier that cuts off any threats trying to cause harm. When the defense system activates, the elves announce a grand banquet feast to celebrate the master's return. When the moon rises, the celebration heats up to full intensity. There are gnomes, elves, and humans all together drinking and laughing. Our guy looks from the side satisfied that he has gathered such a community around himself. Yona approaches to check how he is and asks if he has had enough food. He tells her that he is sincerely happy. Everyone has become such good friends. The children are already planning to go fishing tomorrow, but Nagi warns, "Stay inside the barrier." Yona looks at him with pure admiration and thanks him for working so hard for everyone. Nagi barely smiles and he suddenly feels her gratitude through the contract sign, as if it were tangible. At farewell, she gives him another sweet smile and rushes off to play with Helio. When he is left alone, exhaustion finally hits him like a truck and he mumbles, "Maybe I overdid it a bit." He decides to go into the water to recharge his mana. He thinks he will just take a short power nap and recover in a few minutes. He sinks into darkness, thinking he will only sleep a little. And suddenly through the water comes the voice of Yona. She is calling him. Slowly he opens his eyes and wonders, has morning already come? He jumps out of the water, greets Yona, and asks how she liked the banquet. But Yona looks completely different. She reaches out to him, wiping tears from her eyes. Nagi is confused for a moment. She suddenly became a head taller than he remembered. And it is then that she drops the bomb that turns everything upside down for you. 3 years have passed. Nagi is trembling from the news. He had been gone for a whole 3 years. It turned out the time skip was so harsh that even our guy, while he was catching magical ZS. Yona, all in tears, tells how every day he was afraid. What if something terrible had already happened? He thinks that Nagi simply drove herself into the grave for their sake. And now Nagi begins to piece everything together. Fighting giant monsters and holding that pumped-up barrier lake, it drained his mana resource to 0. And the waiting finally ended and Yona meets him so kindly, like no one ever meets someone back. Our guy immediately notices Yona is no longer just a child. He has grown, and his characteristics have sharply leveled and significantly increased. Yona tells him to close his eyes. There is a huge surprise waiting for him there. Nagi finally lifts his gaze and fixates on the estate, which so humiliates his old family home, as if it really looks like a shack from a gangster crowd party. This is a direct show of strength from the peasants. They wanted Nagi to know their savior has a place where he can come as if home. As soon as Nagi hesitates a little before such luxury, he still enters his new base. The dwarves worked hard on the interior design. And then Nagi notices something much more important, an egg sitting on a pedestal. It pains him to the bone that he left this little one alone for 3 whole years. As soon as he touched it, he immediately realized the gacha gods were smiling because inside he felt a living, real pulse. Yona explains the whole village took turns talking to the egg every day, and there was not a single day they missed. When Nagi asks about monster attacks, Yona answers without hesitation. Philly and Suiko took on the patrols. Suddenly, a familiar face emerges from the very etheric void. Suiko responds with a greeting, "Good morning, Dad," and now she looks even more magnificent than ever. As it turns out, Suiko stayed behind not by accident. She was covering the people of the lake because Yona personally asked her. This is an incredible lore fail. Summoning and subjugating a spirit of Suiko's rank means that Yona's spirit magic has already reached its peak. Nagi shines with pride, watching how his protege has fully matured inside. And at that very moment, their silence is cut by a huge commotion from outside. The entire vestibule stirs and approaches him, but it turns out that inside there is already complete chaos. Nagi tries to apologize for the sudden disappearance, but the elf vine thief growls, ordering him to stop worrying about trifles. They have already managed to set up a grand banquet to celebrate his awakening. And no wonder, they all hid nearby just to jump out in time and surprise him. Nagi is fully for the party and immediately tells Yona to invite all the other kids as well. The celebration literally raged. The whole town came outside to see their lord. Etno explains that the Dark Elves have officially settled here and are helping the fields so the harvest is abundant. Nagi behaves like a true G and declares, "If everyone living here decides this together, I see no reason to object." This kindness is so sincere that the Dark Elves almost cry with emotion. They start serving fresh salads, garden to table, ones that look simply incredible. They even advise Nagi to drop by Smithy to check out the new gear being forged there. Garrod, a sturdy dwarf, finally appears to greet Nagi. Nagi thanks him for the home, but Garrod objects. The joy was primarily his own. He admits that building houses for the community gave him a completely different living sense of satisfaction. Meanwhile, the area has transformed from a camp into a real city, one that truly deserves respect. The next day, Nagi goes for a walk, wants to see everything with his own eyes and check how things are progressing. The city blooms and breathes tranquility as Yona leads him through the streets, showing every corner. They run into Almina. She is glowing with impatience. She has to show her new shop. Now they maintain a strong economy, trading valuable materials from high-level monsters for goods and delivering everything to neighboring villages. And the quality of life for everyone in general has risen to the maximum. Finally, they headed to the smith to see Garrod's new masterpiece. The smithy looks professional and fully equipped. Garuda shows the blade he worked on, and Nagi instantly reacts as if struck down. It is an elegantly decorated dagger that radiates quality. Garavri says they found a mithril vein underground and asks Nagi to bless it. Since it was mined in Naga's domain, he can truly turn it into a legendary artifact. Nagi channels his water magic, and the blade flashes with a ghostly glow. The gnomes are completely stunned by what they see. The blessing worked perfectly. The blade transformed into a true spirit lamp sword. This is not just a rare drop now, it is one of the 10 strongest weapons in the entire world. Nagi, let Yoni hold this. The spirit energy is swirling so wildly around the child, it tightens the heart. The aura is so heavy that wave after wave literally disperses into the air. Yona freezes, struck by his beauty, but then the raw power proves too incredible. He is even shaken. Dizziness washes over him. Suddenly someone bursts into the party and, trembling with panic, shouts, "It's Luna," and she looks as if she is completely burned out from stress. She waves her hand and drops a heavy bomb. The envoy of the dragon stands just behind the barrier. Nagi is left to guess what kind of high-level threat or message awaits him next. Nagi found himself face to face with the envoy from the village of Dragonkin, the very one he was searching for. The man calls himself Danif and, before releasing the heavy news into the air, confirms that Nagi is the Great Spirit. He carries a colossal burden, showing that he has come to fulfill the last request of the Dark Dragon, Lord Diazotis. Our guy turned pale and froze in shock as soon as he heard the mention of the last will. A feeling of tightness already gripped his chest, sensing that some tragedy had occurred during his absence. They decided to move the conversation to a more private place to calmly, without extra ears, discuss the grim details of the dragon's death. It turned out that after Nagi saved Diazotis, he lived peacefully in the abyss of eternal darkness near the village of Dragonkin. Diazotis peacefully coexisted with the peasants and caused no problems for anyone. But then the self-proclaimed envoy of the kingdom of Luginas arrived, called Diazotis a fierce dragon, and demanded that the peasants hand him over. The dragon tribe does not betray, so they directly refuse to obey the order and betray their friend. Because of this, the kingdom was forced to return with a whole army to plunder the village. The Dragon Knights held out until the last moment, until the kingdom's heroes burst into battle and the balance was overturned and the village was completely destroyed. When his friends were being killed, Diozotas burst into the fight, revealing his true power and pushed the invaders back. Even when the people retreated, the dragon knew they would return again and again, bringing new trash mobs to sow suffering. He concluded the only way to save the village was to go on a suicidal mission and break the human forces once and for all. In the end, he left Danif one last request: if he does not return himself, give his child to Nagi, let her be under protection. With a tight pain in his chest, he entrusted the future of his son Pelagius to the Great Spirit. When he returned to reality, the burden of the fierce battle did not let go for a long time until Dana finished her story. Suddenly, inside the basket that Danif brought with him, something begins to move. The cutest little dragon you have ever seen appears, Prince Pelagius. The baby does not hesitate for a second, immediately attaches to Nagi and jumps right onto his lap. This is pure gacha cuteness. He nuzzles his nose against Naga's hand. Nagi asks about the remains of his father and, looking into the little dragon's eyes, learns that the villagers buried him properly. Unable to resist, Nagi gazes into the innocent little dragon and his heart melts. He thanks him for his loyalty to his friend. He officially vows to take the child under his wing and protect him. Denif returns home and begs Nagi, keep the prince safe at any cost. A week passes and Nagi fully immerses himself in fatherly life. He vows to raise Pelagius into a legendary dragon. The little one is pure energy, incessantly chirping and constantly eager to fight, ready to act at any moment. Every morning, Nagi takes him deep into the forest for live training battles so he can improve. But they are not alone. Recently, some random slime has started following them around. This little slime works as a cleaning crew. It eats all the remains that Valacious leaves after hunting. He is amazingly smart and even tries to communicate with Nagi through gestures. The training session is interrupted as soon as they notice a huge shadow lurking in the bushes. It is a hippogriff, and it seems this creature has serious personality problems. A beast jumps out of the trees. It lunges forward sharply and raises an attack on our guy with a battle cry scream. Pelagius does not hesitate, meets the monster in the air with a bloody, brutal frontal strike. And the hippogriff has a nasty debuff burn. It lets out a piercing scream. The sound wave hits Pelagius in the heart. He staggers and grabs on to stay in the air. Nagi understands this scream paralyses, for the young dragon pure hellish pain. Nagi understands this scream paralyses, for the young dragon pure hellish pain. Even Sliz pokes words of support from the sidelines as the tension builds like a spring about to snap. The hippogriff, having recovered from the stun, drives Pelagius into the ground with all its might. A massive crunch of bones rises from the impact. The little dragon is pinned to the ground. He lies motionless and looks as if he is about to be removed. Just as Nagi is about to draw aggression onto himself and end the bird's life, something suddenly changes in the air. Pelagius's eyes flare with a terrible ancient glow. A huge dark space suddenly splits open and engulfs the entire area, erasing it in absolute darkness. Nagi feels unbearable pressure. This is the true, terrible power of the dark dragon. The monster realizes it has tangled with the wrong player and panics as the darkness tightens around. The darkness is so thick it seems to repel light itself, a terrible aura capable of breaking any ordinary creature. When the shadows finally dissipate, only a few feathers remain from the hippogriff. Pelagius wheezes heavily, crushed by dust to the ground, and with one jerk completely cleared the lobby. Nagi rushes to his tired little warrior to heal him after the exhausting awakening. He is incredibly proud, so he strokes the dragon's head as it deserves. As Pelagius returns to his meal, Nagi senses two familiar presences approaching. Neo and Luo twins suddenly appear out of nowhere. They immediately explain. Supposedly, they are busy helping their master with magical research near the lake. Nagi doesn't even have time to realize how it all happened, as the twins are already locking him into a giant teleportation circle. In fact, he is kidnapped without any warning. When he finds himself in the room, the old man immediately apologizes. He says his student is behaving rudely. The old man introduces the guest named Mutwo Hiraki. The man smiles smugly and drops a bombshell. He is also a reincarnator from Japan, just like Nagi. Hiraki Mudu sits opposite our guy, and it turns out he is a reincarnator from Japan, just like Nagi. Nagi breaks out in a sweat because this name, he definitely heard it before. They seal the deal with a handshake, and the guy tells Nagi, just call him Hiramu. Wherever he goes, this guy immediately recognizes Nagi is not an ordinary person but a great spirit. Hiramu decides to make a grand confession. He says that although he looks like a human, his true essence is a legendary sacred dragon. But suddenly little Bear Aegis appears just to say hello, and Hiramu instantly recognizes him as the child of the dark dragon Diozotus. Hiromu begins to tell how reliable Diozotus was, but Nagi has to spoil the mood with heavy news. Nagi's fist clenches as he prepares to deliver a report that will hurt. Diozotus has died. Hiromu is completely stunned. He cannot believe that such a top-level team could be defeated and disbanded. Nagi explains that a messenger from the village of Dragonkin came personally to deliver the grim news. Hiromu sits down, and there is literally no part of him left alive from the loss of his old friend. The old man joins the conversation and says that the kingdom of Lagnus is starting to move strangely. Soon they intend to start a full-scale war against the Dragonkin people in the village. To draw attention to themselves and justify the invasion, the kingdom picks up old incidents including the attack on the treasury as a convenient pretext. They blamed everything on the Dark Dragon just to have a reason to eliminate him. Nagi says that this logic is garbage. It was the humans who kidnapped the egg and were the first to use forbidden magic. The old man objects that the situation is actually much more complicated than just a misunderstanding. Forbidden magic is that which a person naturally cannot handle. It is the energy reserve of the underworld. That is, an entire kingdom can be harshly subjugated by cunningly manipulating demons. And demons are true top-tier griefers. They rebelled against the gods and shamelessly abused dark, ruthless power. They hide in the shadows and secretly hunt other races to continuously accumulate strength themselves. Harama burned with anger and insisted that people must see true horror to make an enemy out of a dragon. Nagi has no intention of sitting idly by and watching the village wiped off the face of the earth. Garam agreed, recalling a promise. He will lend his power if everything goes awry. Nagi is ready to help but fears that the splash damage will affect innocent people caught in the crossfire. The old man also nods. Corrupt officials are in the crosshairs, but they have no right to harm citizens. He officially assigns them the main task of this arc. Go to Dragonkin village and defend it from the army of Ludginus Kingdom, which is about to move here. Nagi takes the mission immediately, while the old man vows to investigate the demon's influence already in the capital. Jurumu looks at Nagi and his gaze. Respect and guilt are intertwined so tightly, as if it were a single knot. He apologizes for the outburst of anger and for dragging a person into this mess who has nothing to do with it here. He is sincerely grateful. There is a backup from Nagi nearby for the upcoming fight. Alright, Nagi only smiles in response and says that from the moment he met Diozotus and took Bear Aegis in, he has never been out of the matter. He wants to protect the homeland of the boy and continue the will of the dragon who saved him. Jurumu barely smiles, understanding. Nagi is too expansive and views exactly as their mutual acquaintance Yuki said. He said, "Time to move," and the air begins to shimmer. Massive energy is already brewing in it. Giant white wings spread out and caught the light while they prepared for takeoff. Hiromu shows his true form, a majestic white dragon that looks like a literal boss unit. Nagi jumps on his back and instantly teleports without any delay, while Baragius flies nearby. It seems like a legendary party heading straight into the higher level zone. Before leaving forever, Nagi gathers the elves and explains why he must go to the Dragonkin village. He wants this city not to be drawn into the conflict while he is away. Little Yona steps forward and begs Nagi to take her with him this time. She says that she has leveled up her assets and now she can finally fight because she has a spirit sword. Nagi gently strokes her head and admits Yona has become stronger both in body and spirit. But instead of taking her into the combat zone, he asks her to become the chief protector of the city while he is gone. Yona nods and accepts the mission with a firm look, promising to protect everyone while Nagi is absent. As soon as they rose into the air, Nagi told Baragius that he wants to keep Yona away from the fight for her safety. Baragius turned out to be a real prankster and handsome guy. He pressed close to Nagi as they flew through the clouds. Nagi honestly admits he hesitated whether it was worth taking this kid along at all. But this is his father's resting place, so he considered the children's feelings and made him promise not to fight. And suddenly the dragon's eyes sharpened sharply. He caught something on the horizon. Finally, through the fog, the place he longed for emerges. The village of Draconik is a huge and fabulously beautiful settlement, built among floating mountains and waterfalls that fall straight into the abyss. Our guy finally reached the very epicenter of the storm, the place where the innocent must be protected from the flames of war. Elder Rojas approaches the village to meet the squad on site. He is gnawed by curiosity. Could our Nagi really be the same great water spirit who walks alongside the legendary sacred dragon Takamuto and the dark dragon Barajas? Nagi nods to him warmly, friendly, and little Barajas only lets out a cute chirping. Rip, Rojas clearly breathes a sigh of relief. He is trembling at the thought of the coming war. He explains, reconnaissance confirmed that the enemy army is just a few days away. Before the raid starts, Nagi wants to take the little one to the resting place of Diazatis. Rojas agrees to lead them to the dragon mausoleum, which towers on a huge floating rocky outcrop. When they reach the monument, Nagi freezes in complete silence before the statue of the fallen dragon. Looking closely at the ancient inscription on the stone, you feel the weight of the situation finally settle on your shoulders. I remove comments about this place being quiet and peaceful. Such a mood in a world driven mad by chaos is rare. The mood breaks instantly as soon as Borgias realizes where they are. The poor little dragon begins to sob right on the stone, and that is enough to break anyone's heart. Nagi falls to his knees and touches the cold stone, whispering, "I really wanted to meet you again alive." He makes a solemn vow to protect the village and keep the dragon's legacy safe. Suddenly, a barely noticeable ghostly presence appears to thank him, and Nagi is completely stunned. He looks back at the empty statue and immediately understands how high the price of this upcoming defensive mission will be. Since they are already here, Hiromu suggests visiting the Twilight Sanctuary, the shrine where the dragon once lived. They find a huge crater on the earth, as if a nuclear bomb exploded right here. The group carefully follows a route along the edge of the abyss to find the entrance to the hidden cave. Nagi, running through the darkness, feels something is definitely wrong here. He stops as if rooted to the spot and catches a mysterious aura. It rises in waves from the darkness. Ahead, around the corner, a deep, piercing cold is already coming from the tunnel. Despite all the red flags, Nagi decides to take the attention upon himself, pulls aggro, and goes alone. From the abyss, two flickering, empty eyes look out and ask what he wants. A dark-haired boy climbs out, looking as if he hasn't slept for 10 years, and Nagi introduces himself. He is the spirit of water. This is Formus, the great spirit of darkness, and he frankly does not like that a company has appeared in his domain. Neji explained he was simply paying tribute to an old acquaintance who recently passed away. Formus looks completely indifferent to all sentiments and simply stares at Nagi with an empty, dispassionate gaze. She throws a mysterious phrase about how Nagi hardly resembles a spirit too, often dealing with humans. Before Nagi can manage to ask for a bit more lore, Formus promises to remember everything and disappears in an instant, melting into the air. Hiromu is simply stunned. Nagi just had an everyday conversation with the spirit of darkness. Over the next few days, they enjoy a short break with the Dragonkin, and they turn out to be the most sincere NPCs in history. Watching how they live so peacefully, he finally understood. He has no right to allow any trash mobs to spoil this village. He sits alone, forging in himself the determination to protect these people, no matter what happens next. But peace does not last long. Hiromu receives news the enemy army is finally approaching. Hiromu is no longer joking. He asks Nagi if he is really ready to face other people. Our guy admits honestly he has fought more than once but has never truly killed a person. He realizes this. He needs to kidnap himself because ahead is a critical battle for the survival of everything that does not let him go. Hiromu admits that his own human consciousness is rapidly fading, and to be honest, it scares him. He tells Nagi talking with him and Yuki is the only thing that reminds him that he was once human too. They decide to stop this quarrel as soon as possible, right at the moment when a messenger runs in. The army of the Lugan Kingdom has finally arrived, and they are not joking. The sky is clear, but the air is sticky. It is filled with the sharp smell of blood. From the cliff down they see colossal power, 20,000 troops camped right on the plains. But on the other side, the Dragonkin have only 200 elite knights and about 3,000 regular soldiers. Dragon knights are stocky, tough fighters. Each such one is worth 200 people, but the enemy has hero-class warriors capable of taking them down one by one as if they weigh nothing. Nagi squints. He clearly senses 5 distinct, incredibly heavy presences in the enemy ranks. Suddenly the ground shakes. A huge magical circle flares up in the sky. The enemy wastes no time, activates a high-level summoning ritual, and everything around turns into a nightmare. From the swirling stream of energy, a giant creature begins to take shape. It is a colossal armored golem that overshadows the entire forest, radiating a terrifying aura that freezes ordinary soldiers in fear. Nagi admits the enemy summoners are truly skilled they managed to pull off such a trick. The Titan fires a huge beam of energy at our guy directly at his position. Steadily, without a single flinch, he steps forward and with one motion blocks the entire explosion, compressing it into a fist with one hand. He orders Hiram to take the helm, and without stopping for a moment, Hiram rushes forward with a partial transformation into a dragon. Hiram's strike is so powerful that in one step he completely disrupts the enemy's battle formation. Nagi only barely smiles, as if he has already seized the initiative, but his spider-like senses suddenly begin to tremble with anxiety. In an instant, a deadly blade flashes in the air and Nagi is already folded in half before the dragon can even shout its name. Between Dragon Village and Kingdom Luginas, a war has just broken out and everything suddenly goes awry as the assassin reaches to remove our guy Nagi from the board. But Nagi is not just some trash mob caught off guard. He deliberately used himself as bait to lure the assassin and managed to catch him in a water trap before the assassin could deliver a deadly blow. His allies are completely paralyzed by the fact that Nagi remains unharmed, and he is already calculating 3 moves ahead. He already sees the difference. This is not just a random thug behind him stand the skills of a true hero. He hands the prisoner over to his guards to keep the bandit under close watch. As soon as the home base is securely protected, he heads without hesitation straight to the enemy camp to find Harama. For now, Harama is arranging a complete rout of the lobby against the so-called heroes. He delivers a heavy blow, one that immediately makes everything clear to the opposition. The burly bearded man trembles with rage. He calls him a creature crawling like a gecko and does not hold back an angry roar. Hiram barely smiles and taunts his opponents. Is all this really enough to trap a hero? The third heroine rushes forward from the flank, a sudden attack, cold calculation, as if she just found a weak spot. She screams that he has a bunch of holes, but now, supposedly, she will be convinced. Haramo has zero delay. He easily slips through their coordinated attacks like a pro gamer playing on a Smurf account. He grabs a huge axe with his bare hands, and by this shows, the chasm between them is still too wide to bridge. With one lightning-fast kick, he sends the Lady Knight flying, not letting the bearded man get close. Watching from the side, Nagi understands. Hiro has enough strength to gather all 3 heroes together and not even break a sweat. While Haramo holds the front, Nagi feels something disturbing nearby, someone's presence lurking close. He follows the destruction left after Haramu's previous attack with Dragon Breath. He approaches the source and stops near a secluded tent, sensing there is a person inside, but the presence is carefully masked and hidden. Inside the tent, the hooded summoner is completely confused, vainly trying to empty the treasure chests, the very same chests. She panics because Nagi earlier destroyed her summoned demon with one shot, and she realizes this definitely was not in her plans. Nagi enters casually and immediately begins gathering water magic, as if everything is proceeding in the usual order. He traps her in a shimmering water barrier and gives her a chance to surrender without violence. And the summoner thinks it's just a bluff and insists she is not going to fall for the deception. She pulls out a grimoire and summons a burly minotaur to crush Nagi. Our guy does not flinch. He makes his way through the beast's path, manipulating water and slicing its momentum. He completely immobilizes the minotaur, imprisoning it in a block of enchanted water, while the summoner breaks out in a cold sweat. Without hesitation, she calls the next one a huge fish-like monster named Bakwana. This thing looks like a nightmare from the depths, towering over Nagi. It spins a giant whirlpool, trying to swallow Nagi whole. The summoner believes she has finally hit a deadly target. Nagi stands right in front of her huge, toothy maw, and she has not a drop of fear. She calmly whispers to it, "Water is for me," and fully takes control of the monster's own element. A giant splash of water bursts out, shattering the spell with one blow and knocking the summoner off the pedestal of complete confidence. The wave throws the girl into the air, and in an instant she realizes she has already been completely outplayed. Nagi stares at her and bluntly says that choosing him as an opponent is a bad idea. She stared at him as if a god himself stood before her and could not understand why her high-level magic was not working. In a final desperate surge, she burns her last mana to summon Heavy Artillery Hydra and Hekaton Chair. Massive magical circles flare in the air as she calls forth ancient horrors. Multi-headed monsters emerge with a terrifying aura. Any ordinary soldier would faint from it. She is not satisfied with little. She summons a monstrosity, a giant elephant-like tank entity. She shouts for her monsters to kill that boy while they launch a joint assault. A giant trunk crashes into the ground with a roar right next to Nagi in a moment. It will crush everything around. The battle rages and the three heroes finally admit to themselves they are utterly losing to this absolute monster. The Venezia villain only barely smiles crookedly at their pathetic resistance, mocking the very idea of a hero as he prepares to end the raid. Fraser makes a desperate attempt, but one single, brutally fierce spin smears him across the floor. The way their comrade was completely destroyed becomes a verdict for the rest of the knights. The Hetman killer is already draining their fighting spirit. They swear that her death will not be in vain. They squeeze out mana to the limit for the sake of one last, hopeless combo. They unleash their ultimate skills, Chronostamicals and Hazan Tenjiki, hoping to break through the villain's insane defense. The explosion is colossal, the entire arena flares up, and the power is enough to cleanse even the lobby. For a moment, the knights truly think they have secured the W. But this hope instantly vanishes as a devastating counterbeam cuts through the smoke. From the dust emerges the villain with only a few scratches on the body and, as the heroes lie broken on the ground, declares, "The end." Meanwhile, Hiram watches attentively from the side, weighing whether he should run to save our guy Nagi. MC, meanwhile, tries to escape from a direct nightmare, a multi-armed monster whose uncovered threat bursts with tentacles. Nagi tries to keep his distance, maneuvering through a barrage of heavy, precise strikes from a crowd of trashers. He tries to push the monster back with a powerful burst of water magic. It seems like a good move, but the monster's size is too jagged for this scale. Suddenly, the monster tears off his jaw and Nagi realizes he has just walked right into a trap. The monster does not just take the hit, it absorbs water to fuel its own attack. Nagi feels sweat rolling down him like hail as the beast prepares to respond with a shot. The Hydra heads merge together and begin spraying. They spray a deadly dose of Hydra poison everywhere. Nagi barely manages to cover himself, but the poison already starts to eat away at his defense. He is completely surrounded by high-level mobs, and the usual set does not help here. He understands this. A standard attack against 3 bosses at once leaves no chance. But his usual fighting style does not fit here at all. Pushed to the limit, he dives deep into his own mental library, digging through forbidden cheat code. Right in the heart of the Forbidden Archive, he finds a huge tome bound with heavy chains. He feels the colossal power bursting from the book and understands it was sealed not just like that, but for a very dark reason. Even knowing it is forbidden, Nagi catches the main point. If he wants to survive, he simply has no other choice. He reaches forward, his hand trembles as he prepares to break the seal. To break through this abyss, he is ready to pay any price, the one demanded by the gacha gods. A deafening crack, chains break, and the blinding light completely devours his sight. He opens his eyes, and in them is no longer his gaze, but the cold, relentless training of a true monster killer. The demon girl lurking in the shadows is completely stunned by the sudden shift in mana. Nagi begins to utter the forbidden art of the spirit, and the very atmosphere shudders, filled with pure deadly resolve. 3 monsters burst into battle, but they do not realize the game is already lost. Naga's eyes fixate on the targets he sees through their defenses. He calmly stands in the eye of the storm itself, and his mana slowly rewrites the laws of physics as if they obey only him. He whispers the technique, Mist Annihilation Realm. In a moment, the huge monsters vanish, erased by reality itself, and they crumble into fine dust. The demon girl trembles all over and cannot comprehend what just happened when she saw such terrifying power. The monsters do not even leave a drop of loot, they simply dissolve like a glitch in the Matrix. Naga's body finally reaches the limit. He falls as soon as his own strength begins to exhaust and retreat. He realizes that he poured too much power, and that the corresponding backlash hits him like a truck. In consciousness, the loss of the sphere of destruction surfaces a technique that turns the target into mist and erases them without a trace. Even when blood flows from Naga's eye, he manages to hold back the residual mist with a water barrier so it doesn't kill him too quickly. For a moment, Nagi glances at the demon girl. Finally, she has regained consciousness. Hiramu explains another prisoner committed suicide before they could even extract any information from him. Nagi wakes up and sees Hiramu standing right over their new trophy. It was the hero who summoned the flame giant, but she is definitely not human. Nagi raises his horns, and instantly a gigantic magical presence flares up, unmistakably proving before them is a demon. Hiramu is confident this is exactly the demon they were warned about. Hiramu is not joking and sharply asks, "Are we going to kill her here?" The girl immediately starts choking from the magical seal. She trembles and her throat won't obey. She desperately needs to say at least something. She finally lets out a scream. "I am a demon. I will tell you everything I know. Please, I beg you." But as soon as she manages to utter a single word, she is seized by a cough with blood. The silent curse activates instantly. Nagi realizes that she is being purified by her own kind and abruptly rushes forward to intervene immediately. The girl is already on the verge of an irreversible game over poison that grows stronger and does not let go for a moment. Nagi manages to use magic to save her and stabilize her condition, while Hiram meanwhile thinks that he is too soft. Nagi simply smiles and tells his brother, "Lies do not pass me by," and he knew she was sincere. However, he explains, if she suddenly becomes a threat, he will personally take care of her. And they both understand. Demons cast muffling spells so that their secrets are safe from humans. Returning to the village, Nagi finally gets the well-deserved rest, the kind he had long dreamed of. He is greeted by his loyal dog Barry's 100% happy that his master returned safe and sound. Nagi finally allows himself a few gentle strokes for the little boy, relaxing after an exhausting prolonged grind. The war against the kingdom of Lujins ended in a complete victory, and in just 5 hours. Nagi cannot drive away the thought. Demons act mercilessly and frighteningly, dealing with their own people. He knows the war against the demons is not yet over. And for now, he will simply breathe in the silence, the very one he fought so hard for. Several weeks have passed since the war against Luginas ended. Our guy Nagi is now recovering, resting in the village while the leadership awaits a response from the sage. Meanwhile, the demon lady they captured has just woken up and behaves like a complete cinnamon roll. It turns out too abruptly, the former threat suddenly looks cute while she plays with her caretaker. It was revealed that after 8 years, she simply lost all her memories. The sage believes this mental regression may be a disgusting side effect of the spell that suppressed, and instead struck back. Even after memory erasure, she remains a figure of interest, so they plan to meet to decide what will happen next for the kingdom. Nagi assures that everything is fine now, although his mana still drips from his hands like a running faucet, dripping non-stop. When he finally is near the girl Agatsuma, Mashras trembles all over. Sweat runs down his back as soon as they are in the same room. She clings to her caretaker, Sinu, who seems to be the only one who can keep some semblance of calm in her. The sage, without hesitation, unleashes a whole avalanche of knowledge on him and exposes, Mashras is not even a purebred demon. She is a half-blood and she is forced to master high-level magic, so a furious, unbearable burden falls on her soul. What Nagi calls treatment actually saved her life, but her psyche regressed to a childlike state just to survive the trauma of having her true self erased. She is not just playing, panic overwhelms her. She feels the overwhelming presence of Nagi and perceives it as a demon's aura. It gets even darker when she finally realizes demons essentially used her as a disposable battery for their monsters. Agatsuma explains, after the war in Luginas, everything looked incredibly suspicious. When he went to investigate, the guards immediately tried to take him down. He understood the entire army was zombified by evil demons. The sage did not waste time. He sharply struck his staff on the ground and released a de-illusion that cleansed minds throughout the kingdom. His mani is a continuous force strike. With one flash of light, he purifies the entire city, driving fear to trembling. Unfortunately, the demonic plan was already completed before he cleared the lobby. And from this, the situation becomes completely bleak. A whole bunch of spirit magic users and slaves have been captured. Agatsuma is certain the demons are plotting something that will destroy the world, along with those kidnapped mages. Even the Dragon King is already on the verge of a clash, and one of his relatives was caught during that chaos. Nagi was entrusted to make contact with the great spirits to prepare for the coming storm. But the problem is that most of the great spirits are neutral. They are indifferent to human drama. Nagi knows this. He cannot relax if they want to survive. Before leaving, Nagi extends a magical folio that they looted from the demoness. They monitored the forbidden spells, and the sages were stunned because the level of the Masher's monsters forced them to call allies. He decides the best move is for her to stay in the temple to cleanse that lingering, corrosive, malevolent magic. He reaches out his hand to calm her. "You have endured so much pain, and now you can finally rest peacefully," he says quietly. This is a rare moment. Mashers finally allows tears to come out. The sage mocks, saying that in his time he took on students with much bigger puzzles. When everything is finally resolved, Nagi returns to his base near the lake. He makes his way through the clouds along a long road, and finally reaches the outskirts of the village. He is truly shocked. While he was away, the town grew simply incredibly. Yona and Rudo immediately notice him and rush to meet him for a reunion. He was greeted so warmly and sincerely that anyone's heart would melt. Everything is obvious. The village has continued to grind and craft upgrades since he left. The population grew not just by chance. New races are joining the squad to unite. And Nagi notices a huge scaly tail sliding through the grass. Ahead steps forward a group from the Lamia tribe. They want to offer their services to the Lord of the Lake. Just like the Dark Elves, they are an oppressed people seeking protection. Nagi, being the absolute goat, meets them with open arms. Lamia leader noticeably exhales with relief as soon as they find a place where they will no longer be hunted. Nagi just wants everyone to live happily after all the trash they had to deal with. But wait, there is more. Strong dwarves have also arrived in the city, a whole company. They were officially asked to become residents of the growing community. Showing goodwill, they present Nagi with a gift wrapped in cloth. It is a masterpiece sword, made with crazy precision and care. Rudo's eyes literally sparkle as he looks at the blade. Nagi, let the child hold this. Then he decides to simply give it to him as a motivational booster. He will keep it in a safe place until Rudo really learns to swing the sword. The town is expanding to the limit, and Nagi realizes the barrier magic needs to be expanded. He tells the children to gather Philly and the rest of the main team for a meeting at his estate. When everyone gathers in his huge living room, Nagi throws them a heavy request. Go and meet the Elven King as if it were my invoice, he tells them. They need the cooperation of the elves to deal with the demons' conspiracies regarding the spirits. Philadelphia and the team are ready to give their all. Yet Fail looks too serious, so he decides to act separately. Nagi feels that something is wrong but trusts his comrade. When the group is about to set off the next day, Nagi stops them. He pulls out a huge spirit stone glowing with pure energy. He explains they need a high-level artifact like this so that the Elven King finally accepts them as spirit heralds. As soon as the mission is officially launched, Nagi watches them leave and suddenly realizes the price from the start was not just big, now it has never been so high. Philadelphia and the entire team finally returned from their 2-month quest to the Elven Kingdom. They came, and not alone. An incredibly ceremonial retinue returned with them, causing everyone's nerves to tremble slightly. Ahead marches Vilrian Lunizia Finrelt, the true crown prince of the kingdom. Nagi, without a doubt, trembles with fear. He clearly expected Philly to suffice as an envoy, not that she would bring along an heir to the throne. He realizes this far too late. Lunisha literally translates as crown prince in Elvish. Nagi tries to understand how everything escalated so quickly. Philly explained, as soon as they arrived, the royal guard almost escorted them straight to the palace, so they felt through their spirit stones the immense presence of Nagi. Having stayed so long near the great entity, the group finally went deaf and only then realized how important their guy really was. Nagi admitted that he himself had let this slip from memory and then finally understood. Now he must be more careful because he is attracting the attention of the great world powers. The prince kneels and presents a letter from King Lucian himself. Even in the formal tone, Nagi senses what is hidden behind the words. The king truly wants to establish harmonious relations. He breathes a sigh of relief. Now it is finally possible to firmly strengthen ties between these two territories. The prince bets on zero lag in cooperation and insists on hearing a full account from Nagi. Nagi does not hold back. He releases everything he knows about the kingdom of Luginous and the dark dragon Diazotis. He even reveals the truth about the demons pulling strings behind the scenes. From what the prince hears about demons and vanished spirit mages, his face looks as if heavy debuffs have fallen upon him. Nagi insists that the elves must be a bridge for communication with other great spirits to anticipate what is yet to happen. Instead, the prince asks for a colossal favor due to the illness of the former king. Nagi only barely smiles, extends some special water, and says that it is the same thing that lifted the curse from a very real dark dragon. The prince is completely stunned. He immediately understands before him is the cure for the legendary forbidden curse. As soon as the elves clear the lobby, a new group of visitors arrives at the entrance. This time it is Beastkin Bastix, and without any pause, they call Nagi the great spirit of water. Fail has returned and even brought with him burly guards, just like Sharo. They arrived from the Beastkin Federation to discuss a deal and further strengthen their ties. Nagi is still trying to process the sudden appearance of guests when one of the creatures is about to start moving. The smoke cloud disperses and the picture suddenly becomes clear. Here is the truth. It turns out this is actually Prince Farian, the third Prince of Judars, who fled home to travel with this group. They immediately moved the conversation inside the manor to get down to business. Varian says that he has already reported to his father about the power of Nagi. His servant is also fully convinced of Naga's divinity. After all, a fierce barrier guards the lake. Nagi is only happy. Finally, they have come to an understanding and are on the same wavelength. They immediately dive into the papers to finalize the alliance as quickly as possible. Everything is simple with the terms. Nagi is considered a separate military unit, so no additional forces will be demanded from him. Nagi adds a warning: he will not help if Judaras becomes the aggressor in the war. They agree to protect each other's citizens and keep trade honest and moderate. This is truly a strong agreement without any loopholes. Both sides have warmed up and are already ready to start working together. Everything is sealed with a handshake, laying the foundation for a large-scale redistribution of power in the region. Nagi is already calculating the next move to Dragonkin Village, but the team is worried he is overstepping. He wants to propose an anti-demon agreement and regulate their trade relations. The children swear to guard the lake as long as Nagi remains absent. Nagi insists that they must go because there is someone he absolutely must meet in person. He once again becomes part of the Dragon King group together with Yona and Almina. When the acquaintance is left behind, it becomes known Yona is Naga's contractor. After this, they decide to head to the forbidden sanctuary of eternal darkness. But before they set out on the road, Nagi calls Formus for a private conversation. Formus looks as if he has seen a ghost and orders Nagi to be on alert. He drops a bombshell and cuts to the chase: "You have overstepped with power." So Nagi is a newly born creature, so his existence is unstable, and he might simply disappear if this continues. Nagi is all sweaty. He is panic-stricken that he won't cope with the demons if he falls asleep. Formus explains that since his soul is linked to the contractor, they will only wake him when the world truly needs him. He tells Nagi to trust his guys and to sleep for a long time. Nagi finally realized he cannot carry the entire server on his own. He watches as the children sleep and understands all this time he has been carrying it alone. He contemplates his duty as a powerful being, and Yona catches him doing this. He is still awake and getting up. Yona worries and tells him that he needs to rest, otherwise he will break. While Nagi tries to speak, his body right before her starts turning into water. His hands literally liquefy as soon as the mana drops to 0. Yona sees that he is completely exhausted and will beg him to fall asleep. Nagi resists, says he must protect them, but Yona disagrees. The point she tells him is that by allowing them to help, he is actually making the city stronger. She reminds him of all the times he saved them and says, finally, it is their turn to repay. She grabs his hands and begs him not to push himself into a corner. She implores, rely on us even more. Casting a glance at her determined face, Nagi understands she is right. Finally, he agrees to allow himself a little rest. Well, Nagi returns to the lake earlier than expected, so the trading affairs remain with Almond. Helio cries so much that his eyes sting, but he vows to become stronger to be useful. Nagi tells Yona to protect everyone while he is absent. He promises sooner or later he will return to them. Likewise, everyone gathers together and prays for his recovery, while the Great Spirit begins to fade. Nagi throws them one last look and completely dissolves. The water shimmers as he merges again with the lake. Yona holds back tears with all his might as the boss logs out of the system. Good night, Lord Nagi, until the day we meet again. Then a single drop falls on the surface and it is a signal. The long-awaited moment has finally come. Yona immediately felt a change in the air instincts, screamed that something grand was about to happen. In a barely audible whisper, he realizes the truth. Lord Nagi has awakened. He does not waste a single second and rushes towards the source of that colossal power. It is the water that begins to boil, rising in waves as if the return of their leader is already felt in the very tide of energy. Nagi comes outside. He looks as if he hasn't aged a day, calmly smiles and greets Yona, and it immediately becomes clear. Our guy has finally returned to the game. Even the dragon Beelgeus cannot hide his excitement as soon as Nagi extends his hand. He behaves like a real puppy. 5 long years have passed, and while Nagi was on forced AFK, the world did not stop, so the legendary Agatsuma arrives to report on the state of the kingdom. Returning to the manor, Nagi looks stunned at the skyscrapers piercing the clouds. They look more like a modern city than a fantasy village. It turned out that the gnomes took Nagi's words about high housing density too literally, and relying on their masterful skills in crafting things, built concrete jungles. The city has turned into a hub of trade with teleportation circles and underground passages, but as soon as someone utters the word demons, Naga's gaze sharply changes. For 3 years, the demons played the role of mad scientists, transforming monsters into absolute nightmares and sowing terror across the continent. These are not just your usual trash mobs, they nearly wiped entire nations of beastmen and dragons off the face of the earth. Yoner explains even this city was under siege, but he rose to his feet as a DPS of the highest caliber to protect their home. But he was not alone. The water spirit Suiko holds an impenetrable barrier so that civilians remain safe. Nagi is actually proud of how far they have come, but Suiko shows otherwise. After the last battle, they left behind something eerie. She turns out a jagged precious stone obsidian black, torn from one of the defeated monsters. Nagi takes the stone, and his face darkens. He immediately feels corruption spreading from it. This is not just a random drop, it has the same cursed aura as Forbidden Child and Diazotis. When Nagi looks back at it, the stone suddenly starts bleeding a deep red, and it reveals its true form, a crystal of a fire spirit that has rotted from corruption. The room grows cold until Suiko explains, these crystals are the hearts of spirits, so demons literally cut open spirits to fuel their war machine. It seems this was a weaker fire spirit, and it had no chance. Naga's hands tremble as he clenches the crystal, and his calm finally shatters into pure rage. Attacking my village, harming the spirits, desecrating them, I will never forgive them, he declares, and cold fury burns in his eyes. The unhidden scale of his murderous intent is so heavy that the children are about to collapse under this pressure. Noticing the tension, Agatsuma claps his hands to break the spell, suggesting to end it for today so that Nagi can restore his mana. The persistent grumbling fades away, but the fire in his eyes does not go out. Inside that night, Nagi thanks the old man for relieving the tension before Nagi completely loses self-control. Agatsuma does not make any introductions, he simply asks Nagi to represent the spirits at the upcoming Unification Council. This is truly a grand alliance. The heaviest forces of human, elven, gnomish, and draconic clans have come together. Nagi hesitates because he feels he is too out of the loop to lead the other great spirits. But Agatsuma reveals the answer: the spirits darkness, lava, desert, and thunder have already sworn to support this cause. And they make it clear they maintain the alliance only because Nagi is at the helm. When Nagi hears that the meeting is in 5 days, he is almost overwhelmed with a zero message. Agatsuma insists that there is no time for a training arc and that Naga's presence is mandatory. 5 days fly by and a huge teleportation circle flares up, comes to life. They burst into the very heart of the Unashia Empire, a country that seems to have already exhausted the entire tree of magical technology and research. This is an impregnable fortress, so only one place remains that makes sense for the World Summit. They enter the council hall where the air is so thick that it suffocates even a dragon. Once again, all the key world leaders have gathered here, and they all look as if sweat is pouring down them like hail. Nagi notices a familiar face in Hiram, the right hand of the Dragon King. He looks as if he hasn't slept for a week. Hiromi admits he is stuck in an endless struggle, trying to prevent the vengeful dragons from running wild. Agatsuma steps forward to speak at the meeting and reminds everyone that the threat from demons is no longer a problem, at least, not for now. He throws his hammer and tells the kings, if you continue to take solo shifts and don't start acting as a team, it's the end for everyone. King Vanava of the dwarves voiced what was on everyone's mind: how exactly to solve this problem. Agatsuma clenches his fist and says, his vision proves in 3 years a full-scale war will break out, so only victory remains. A wave of pure horror instantly sweeps through the hall, as if bound by iron. They all remember the legends of ancient wars, where even with the support of the gods, the alliance could not bring the matter to an end. That battle left the world in ruins, and yet the demons were never completely driven out. Agatsuma keeps telling them not to despair, but the historical trauma still painfully hits everyone. Nagi silently listens while they chatter about how the previous hero managed to defeat the Demon King. The kings tried to wriggle out. Supposedly, demons shouldn't be as powered up as in the Golden Age. They look at Nagi and Harama and finally understand, when dragons and great spirits are on your side, there is at least some chance in battle. The mood switches instantly and the room explodes with applause as soon as the participants convince themselves that the chance of victory is truly real. But in the midst of the celebration, among the crowd, one man brazenly flashes a suspicious smile. Nagi immediately reads the boy's mood, and before anyone can blink, he locks him in a water prison. Everything in the hall quiets down while the man resists the devastating pressure of spirit magic. Other nobles decide that Nagi has completely lost his mind and demand an explanation for why he is attacking a person. But Nagi does not flinch. Such a mighty rage rises within him that no human can possess it. While he speaks, the man's skin begins to melt like cheap plastic, and beneath it emerges a monster, a mutilated, scarred demon spy face lurking among them. The conversation starts with a cold demand to tell the truth. First, what is your name? This demon spy trembles desperately until the crystal blade only slightly scratches his cheek. He tries to pretend to be a silent player, but this room is filled with top players, those who would never think of playing around. The old man warns, if you choose silence before activating the high-level torture spell. The demon folds a flash of lightning, and it lets out a scream that would make even a pack of scavengers tremble. Nagi Arboy is forced to activate his healing magic so the spy's health does not drop to 0, and then the torment goes on endlessly. Aha, I will speak, just stop. The spy laughs and the whole truth comes out. He is Junus, an agent of the demonic army. He was sent to gather intelligence about the Alliance. His real mission was to investigate the mighty spirits and dragons. Nagi leans forward, he exudes a frightening aura, and he asks, what are you going to do with them, with the kidnapped spirit mages? He demands the spy to tell me everything you know. The truth is cruel. They brainwash the mages and sacrifice spirits to fuel the dark ritual. To resurrect the demon king, Junus screams so that his face twists into a demonic nightmare. He starts laughing before the end as soon as the body swells and bursts, mocking, as if they will all be cut down. Nagi does not slow down for a moment, immediately unfolds a barrier to contain the colossal explosion. It turns out he did not just commit suicide, another demon remotely blew him up so that he would shut up and not interfere. Side characters completely lose self-control. They are overwhelmed by fear because they are not sure they can defeat the legendary boss. The old man cuts off the panic, noting that the demon king has not yet returned. They need to gather their strength and work tirelessly to gain power before the enemy has time to prepare. We will choose a hero, declares the old man, looking as if he is already ready to lead the world on the first raid. The council decides. The sacred church of Arnis will take on the ritual, and the meeting finally ends. Several weeks pass while the world prepares for the storm that is about to hit. A messenger named Donan arrives at the estate to deliver news that will turn life upside down. He says that 5 heroes were chosen through divine oracular revelation. The child holds the spirit sword. He simply looks straight at our guy's partner and in a tone without any hesitation says, that kid is none other than Lord Yona. It seems the oracle is absolute. These chosen heroes will receive the sacred blessing and the sign of the gods. Yona unbuttons his shirt and shows the water divine sign glowing on his chest. The church decides to snatch Yona right from under their noses and immediately take him to the Grand Cathedral to do harsh power leveling. Nagi understands what this means. His contract partner is being taken away and he freezes in complete silence. Even though Nagi is not too thrilled about how everything turned out, determination burns in Yona's eyes. I will become a water hero, he proclaims, tearing himself into a heavy role to protect everyone he cares about. In 3 days, it's time for them to depart and Yona says goodbye. The townspeople themselves don't know how to feel about this. The church is involved, but Yona is a reason for them to rejoice. A little girl clings to him and cries, whispering how incredible her older brother is. Encouragements ring everywhere. People shout for Yona to do his very best. But behind stands Heliond. He looks completely destroyed. Yona flashes a look at his friend but cannot utter a single word. A huge social chasm has opened today between the chosen hero and everyone else. Nagi watches the drama and feels the tension in the air already thick, like before a storm. When the sun sets, Nagi admits to himself, without his comrade, he will be lonely. He notices Yona sneaking out of the house in the middle of the night. Our guy decides to follow him in spirit form to find out what is going on. Yona encounters Helio deep in the forest. Helio remains cold and directly asks what business I have with the hero of the Holy Church. It clearly pains him, and he tells Yona that he has no intention of listening to any excuses. Helio suddenly admits he is happy Yona has worked tirelessly for 7 years. And everything falls apart. Helio bursts out screaming, why of all things did you side with the Holy Church? Nagi realizes that Helio is right. The story here is truly dark. Dark elves were once ordinary elves. They were kidnapped by demons and then through vile experiments transformed into a new race. Instead of helping them, the church declared them heretics and launched brutal persecutions. Helio remembers how they were chased and hunted, how they were driven out of every community until they found Lake Nagi. Helio cannot believe that Yona is joining the very people because of whom his race had to endure so much suffering. But Yona did not just give up, he decided to go under their winged protection not by accident, but for a significant reason. He has gained another goal, he says to his friend, and he stares straight into his eyes. He reveals the plan to force the Pope to cancel the accusations that dark elves are heretics. He knows the hero's request will truly be heard, unlike the request of a half-elf. From the very beginning, this was his plan, clear, thought out to the smallest detail. But Yona wants to reshape reality for the dark elves, whom he loves so sincerely and strongly. He wants to be like Lord Neji, to become a support and save those who are punished unjustly. Helio can no longer hold back tears. He apologizes for the coldness with which he treated his friend. And he swears, while Yona is absent, he will protect the city and Nagi with everything he has. I will become stronger, he swears through tears. He tells Yona that it is better for her to return safe. He seals the promise with a brothis. Finally, Nagi peers out from the darkness, proud, as if his guys are already clearing the lobby of their own doubts. Finally, the day has come when Yona leaves Lakeside Town and sets off on his next quest. His family definitely feels the full weight of this moment, as if subtly reminding him he always has somewhere to return to, home. Yona will not go alone. Suiko stays close to cover him while he swears to return a true hero. It turns out Suiko is not the only one who has resolutely taken up the task. A new spirit named Suiko has appeared, born to watch over the city. Before the party moves on, Nagi gives Yona a mysterious gift. It is a completely new spirit sword, created specifically for Yona's growth because his old equipment has already started to look like starting level. Nagi wants him to fight immediately with both of these bad guys to maximize the results of training. To keep them connected across the entire map, Nagi reminds, the contract seal gives Yona the right to call for help when the situation suddenly goes bad. This is a huge reinforcement, as Nagi says, my power works just like Yona's power. Donan takes the lead in guarding Yona while they prepare to move out. Suddenly Helio bursts in, sprinting full speed, all sweaty. He had been praying for their safety all the time. And exactly how Yona was about to save the world sparked fire in Helio and Rudo. When they wave goodbye to each other, Helio suddenly realizes he is tired of being a secondary character. Without hesitation, he tells Nagi, I want to become stronger. He strives to protect the squad just like Yona does. Helio immediately starts his training upgrade, pouring every drop of sweat into mastering the spear. Every day he digs into work and breaks his own plans to catch up in DPS. Rudo never relaxes anywhere. He dives so deep into spiritual magic that they both can push each other to the limit. They keep their focus on the prize, and even Rudo declares, someday he will defeat his older brother. The matter does not drag on long. Agatsumu arrives, looking completely shattered, and will beg Nagi for help. He dropped news that makes one's head spin. An ancient monster once sealed away has broken free. The demons officially resurrected Cerberus, the legendary three-headed dog from hell. The children completely lose their composure. They thought this creature was just a myth. This is not some trash mob, but a threat level like world-class bosses. During the Great War of Gods and Demons, it rampaged in waves, destroying everything in its path. Agatsuma admits that he will not actually be killed, so the only condition for victory is to seal the beast again. Nagi does not hesitate, takes aggro on himself, and leaves Suiki to manage the base while he goes to deal with the threat. They teleport away, instantly leaving others behind. They land deep in the mountains, such a secluded place that no one blinks as demons summon a nightmarish terror. If they do not stop Cerberus here, the beast will immediately head to the nearest villages and wipe out everything in its path. Hirumi and Yuki are already on site. They barely managed to chip off a little from the monster. Nagi introduces the heavyweights, Menafi, Road, Otrix, and Vicolt, those 5 sages. These guys are the highest level of mages in this world, from alchemists to binding masters. Even with all this firepower, the aura rising from Cerberus is pure rage. One of the sages even jokes that you could make a pet out of it, but quickly realizes this monster is in a completely different league. So Nagi gives the word, start preparing for the sealing. Since this is a spell and also a huge large-scale ritual to activate it, it will take a lot of time. Cerberus notices them and rushes forward, accelerating so much that the group has to act before it reaches the civilian zones. Nagi orders everyone to prepare for the strike, while he himself unleashes power to unleash a giant wave. He releases a stream of water. It cuts through the air like a blade and gives the beast no pause. The water crystallizes into sharp projectiles and floods the space with rain pouring directly onto the beast. From the side, the attack looks as if someone made a direct, accurate shot from afar. The projectile hit the three heads of the monster, and for a moment it froze stunned. Hiramu tries to intercept the start, but Cerberus already has a trump card prepared. In a moment, the beast completely disappears from the battlefield. He fires with a pro-gamer move, teleports right behind the hero and tears into an unexpected flank. The beast lunges forward and sinks deep into Hiramu's arm before he can react in any way. Hiramu is left bleeding, desperately pondering which broken mechanism he is dealing with. Nagi realizes the situation is critical. The beast is wrapped in toxic haze. Moreover, her spatial teleportation makes her almost impossible to track and control. The elders sweat, pressing the seal to the limit, begging just a few more seconds to have cover. Nagi and Hiro exchange a glance. Time to stop holding back and unleash the highest dragon, the water tag team combo. Cerberus is a real problem. He can teleport and constantly leaks miasma, spreading it everywhere. But Nagi is made differently. Her body is healed by water, so she can truly touch this trash mob and not get infected. She thinks if she survives the petrification from the basilisk, she will definitely be able to withstand any dog stench. Suddenly, a dark portal opens while the beast is still preparing to strike. Nagi does not hesitate and breaks straight through right into the very hell, into the danger zone. Cerberus bursts out of the shadow portal, and our girl is already ready to take the aggro. She spins a giant water vortex to catch the beast. Hiramu supports her with shouts while she pushes the monster into the right place. It turned out that her healing form with water is a tough counter against miasma. Cerberus realizes he is losing and uses a dirty trick, tries to pull Nagi into another dimension. Hiramu dives into the vortex to stop the teleportation, shouting as if about to tear his throat out, "I won't allow this to happen." Two dragons grapple with the three-headed nightmare, pinning it to the ground while water splashes fly in all directions. The sage watches from the side and asks, "Are you two okay? The power level in this fight is already reaching the breaking point." Nagi understands time is running out and shouts back, "Don't make things up. If I let go, it will escape." She just improvises a high isekai play on the go, planning to turn into a water bullet to trap the beast. Hiramu is insanely afraid for her, but calmly explains, "It's all right, I am water." She is literally about to apply a shockwave of a breathing attack, scattering her own body just to break free from the seal. The countdown begins. The tension has jumped to the very limit. On the count of 2, Nagi completely wraps the beast in her water prison. The sage shouts as soon as the last signal is given. The massive shock energy cuts through the water sphere and without any delay slams Cerberus to the ground. When the smoke clears, only a small black sphere remains where the monster was. Nagi reforms her own body and exhales with relief. They were not caught in the indefinite ban of that seal. Nagi is simply happy that everyone is safe. She bursts into a smile, and it is clear the battle is finally won. She says to the group, "Thanks to you, we hit Cerberus dead on, and that proves they are the best duo." Nagi is sincerely impressed by the success of the plan, especially the part where the beast was crushed by the deep-sea water pressure. The threat is neutralized. The group decides to regroup and join the rest of the squad. The threat is neutralized. The group decides to regroup and join the rest of the squad. Hiramu asks if the monster has disappeared forever, and the sage replies, "It has been locked in an isolated space." Hiramu asks if the monster has disappeared forever, and the sage replies, "It has been locked in an isolated space." The ladies are still in shock. They say the shockwaves from the fight reach them miles away. One of the younger sages admits indeed that it was a terrible monster. And immediately a piece of lore comes to mind. The sages are essentially top players of this world who have honed magic over centuries. As the meeting comes to an end, Agatsuma says he is worried about what the demon people are doing. The elders disconnect one by one and thank Nagi and Hiramu for their support. Everyone exchanges farewells and returns to their zones. Even the elegant lady sage is about to head home after this exhausting raid. But before the old sorceress seals the root of wisdom and leaves, she gives Nagi a special gift. It is a bottle of Evelut divine medicine that she mixed herself. Essentially, it is practically a cheat code, the so-called wish drug which fulfills everything the user truly desires. She clearly warns, as long as they do not desire world destruction, everything will work. But there is a catch. It is a one-time item. She admits that she has already used her wish, so now she does not need the potion. Therefore, she gives it to Nagi, trusting that he will use the gacha reward properly. Hiramu asks if he has a wish in mind, and Nagi is covered by a moment of deep thought. For a moment he thinks maybe he should use it to return to his original world. He remembers the moment when he first arrived. He just wanted to experience everything without fuss and return home as soon as possible. But it is worth looking back at all the friends he has gathered, and it becomes clear his thinking has completely changed. He already understands everything. He has no intention of returning. He has fallen in love with this world and the people who live in it. Hiramu admits that he also has nothing to boast about. They have just entered the twilight. Nagi turns to the chief sage and asks for one more thing before they leave. He looks for the best spear, but not for himself. His goal is simple, to give it to someone special. Let's move to that night under the full moon. We show little Helio. He is training diligently, still stubbornly trying to master the basic equipment. Neji drives right up to the yard and, meeting the boy at home, shocks him with his appearance. Helio is only happy that his mentor is safe and healthy. Nagi tells him she brought a souvenir from Cerberus raid. He extends the legendary spear, and the boy can hardly believe his own eyes. As soon as the second Helio touches it, the weapon treacherously turns into a rusty pile of junk. The poor boy thinks he broke it, but Nagi tells the story of that spear, Theoxys. This weapon was used by a legendary hero, and reveals its true power only when it recognizes its owner. He tells Helio if he continues to sharpen himself and train, the spear will eventually recognize him and shine with light again. Helio is now fully engaged. He promises to give his all. Nagi tells the child to rest because recovery is also part of this hard-won assault. When the day comes to an end, fluffy paws are visible. They rustle and knead the ground. And finally for the day, a poignant shot. A white tiger and tiger cubs with little wings sleep peacefully, quietly purring after a long day. Calm vibes are a luxury we cannot afford right now, as we gaze into the silence on the outskirts of the city. Our guy Nagi and the team are just resting, and finally, a letter arrives from Yona. Nagi immediately dived into updates to see how his former partner is handling the big leagues. It turns out this kid spins non-stop 24/7 under the watchful eye of Lady Anya, the chief holy knight. And he is not solo, he is part of a gathered party, along with 4 other heroes blessed by the gods. We analyze the full list of top talents down to the last position. The team includes Marshall with a cheat code for weather control, Kinya, a master of alchemy, and Menelis, who with her plant magic can practically summon an entire forest. And the group also has a true absolute Renil, the hero of fire, whom Yona looks up to as the best role model. Yona insists that he is reaching the highest level and that he will definitely become a great hero. When he returns home, the rest of the squad feels the pressure. They cannot fall behind such a growth pace. Nagi is simply happy that the boy is already establishing good connections and has not yet broken down from the tough training. A touching moment is cut short as Philly approaches with a serious expression on his face. Note, score-obsessed Kreswav Academy, character first Iron Gate Reform School. She drops an amazing bombshell. Her team stumbled upon a dungeon hidden deep in the forest's thickets. In this world, dungeons are essentially trap gadgets for rare resources and at the same time a political nightmare. They can attract aggression from every neighboring country. Philly played smart and did not let any information leak. She bound her entire scout team with an oath of absolute secrecy. She didn't even have time to look inside. She immediately reported to Nagi and started waiting for instructions. Nagi enters her mental wiki, recalling, dungeons come in 2 clear types, natural and artificial. Natural ones are essentially mana oversaturation zones, which depending on the environment form into fields or mountains. But artificial ones are much more insidious. They are built by dungeon masters as multi-layered towers or underground labyrinths. Although natural places are great for growing raw materials, legendary treasures are hidden precisely in artificial ones, and they are full of deadly traps. Nagi understands if it is a natural dungeon, states will fight over the harvest, but if it is artificial, then it is a trap set by demonic forces. The very next day, they decide to sweep the perimeter to find out exactly what they are dealing with. When the group breaks through the dense thickets, the air suddenly shifts the mood. They have officially reached the heart of the natural underground. The decorations are simply broken to pieces. The flowers are so bright and overgrown that it looks like just one glance at them will apply a poison debuff on you. All this is due to the insane density of magical energy that soaks the soil. Suddenly, Nagi notices something huge. a tree with a worn ancient face frozen in its bark. Philadelphia remains on high alert, but Nagi recognizes the creature immediately. It is a trant, a legendary type of plant monster, usually calm until provoked. These things are practically extinct. Humans mercilessly depleted them for magical shafts and fruits that enhanced power. Realizing they stumbled upon a true gold nugget of rare materials, Nagi decides to return and plan everything before this place becomes the property of others. Under the August sky, the city elite gathers to discuss the discovery. The leaders are amazed. It turns out such a huge mana veil existed very close, literally under their noses. The discussion heats up, whether it is even worth starting to clear the zone. Some are already calculating profits in advance. Rare flowers and materials promise unheard of benefits. And the conclusion is one: cleaning this up is mandatory. But Etna is in despair. The news has already leaked out, and now it is impossible to stop it. She understands human greed is not a fairy tale and fears that as soon as other countries hear about the loot, they will immediately try to swallow their territory. The room is effectively split. They cannot exchange these resources in a way that the outside world does not notice. The Lamia representative insists trading is allowed only with their current allies so that everything remains at a quiet level. Nagi notices this immediately. Etna is too cautious because she is still wary of how people behave with power. The gnome in the room essentially orders everyone to calm down. No one would dare to bluntly provoke Great Spirit Nagi. After a sleepless night, they decide to reveal the discovery only to Dragonwing, Finrelth, and the kingdoms of Judel. They know well, as soon as high-level items start passing from hand to hand, secrets will not last forever. So instead of hiding everything and undermining trust, they launch a diplomatic game with their allies while Nagi acts as the ultimate deterrent against any states that interfere. And the next morning, a group of experienced fighters is sent as an official team for the raid. The younger children simply go crazy. No one lets them into the party. Nagi has to explain that probably deeper inside sit higher-level monsters, ones that can wipe out everyone with a single strike. As a compromise, he agrees to take them to the outskirts, let them work on a few mobs for farming to help protect the city. And they also drag Balagius along for additional fire support. For the children, this is perceived as a real big adventure. When everyone is already well warmed up, training can finally begin. In the darkness, some disgusting-looking garbage monsters are already prowling. Something big is definitely lurking for them in the tall grass, and it rustles as if it is already ready to hunt. The team went into the forest for training. Finally enough time. Rudo and Helio are working on synergy. Suddenly, Rudo's spider sense tingles. He catches a suspicious rustle in the bushes. Even before the threat can unfold, Nagi orders everyone to duck and stay low while he prepares his move. Rudo does not hesitate. With a sharp shout, he releases a stream of water magic under incredibly high pressure. He literally zones out in this state and pours all his mana to the last drop into the first strike. Two nasty goblins are immediately overwhelmed by a complete fiasco from a sudden water burst. Helio immediately checks if Lord Nagi is okay, and our guy, as always, is calm. He is actually holding back excitement. These kids are leveling up their combat skills way too well. Nagi decides to stay aside so the guys can take all the XP, but Balagius suddenly senses another presence nearby. More and more trash mobs approach from the tray, and they do not look friendly at all. Nagi warns the group, if they get surrounded it's a one-way ticket to game over, so he advises keeping distance. But Rudo notices, in the crossfire besides the goblins there is someone else. The goblin pack drives the defenseless victim deeper and deeper into the thicket. But it turns out to be a tiny winged creature very much like a kitten, and it flickers with a whole bunch of scary debuffs. Rudo is already on the edge, ready to take aggro on himself and rescue her from trouble, despite Helio's warning, a tactical risk to jump right into an ambush. Rudo cannot just stand aside, wide-eyed and sobbing. He shouts to hurry up, saying if they don't rush the child will die. And as soon as the friends manage and the problem finally recedes, Helio rushes into battle to clear the lobby with them. Nagi gives them the green light and promises to join in as soon as the situation starts to smell like trouble. The duo rushes forward without any delay. Rudo shoots water straight into the ugly face of the goblin, while Helio maneuvers, approaching with his spear for a follow-up. Helio gets into the work, lands a strong hit that catches the monster by surprise. As soon as the goblin's health bars reach 0, they tear the air with frantic screams. The last wave of magic rolls across the clearing while the kids give their all, not leaving themselves a single second. Rudo finishes off the last stragglers with a precise, perfectly timed burst of elemental power. As soon as the place is cleared, the guys finally catch their breath and look around the battlefield. They rush to the unconscious creature, and Rudo almost begged it to hold on just a little longer. Nagi steps forward with high-level healing and immediately closes the boy's wounds. Even when the physical damage is gone, the creature is still exhausted to the limit. There is not a drop of energy left in it. Rudo concludes that it is simply hungry and offers it his lunch so that it finally comes to its senses. The little fluffy one carefully sniffed the bread. Suddenly he grabs the food and runs at full speed to the nearest cave entrance. The crew decides to follow him and find out what is really happening in the darkness. They enter the cave and the wet walls echo the muffled sounds of creatures left behind. Somewhere deep inside, the little one gently places the bread in front of a much larger figure. It tries to push the food to its own father, hoping to gather them together for a shared dinner. She incessantly scratches and bares her teeth at the father, begging for at least some reaction. But the truth is harsh. The father is not alive, but only a cold corpse, rotting skeleton. Reality hits the group like a truck as they stand and watch the infant mourn its fallen relatives. Eventually, the poor thing collapses on the spot. Pure exhaustion and grief will break her completely. Rudo completely loses self-control. His gaze is fixed on the tragic scene and he freezes in shock. Nagi speaks the cruel truth of the world. This child will not survive alone. Helio is worried about the potential danger when they bring the wild beast into the city, but Rudo does not even think about retreating. He looks at the orphan and says, "This child is like me." He remembers how he would have disappeared without a trace if Nagi had not intervened and saved him. Rudo begs Nagi to allow him to take full responsibility for the child's life himself. After Nagi sees Rudo's determination, she gives her blessing and trusts his heart. They find time to build a real memorial for the deceased parent, even with a small drawing on the stone. Rudo says this with pride. From today, he is the big brother of the tiny creature. Then we are taken to another training ground, where the heavy gaglet completely blocks a powerful strike. The instructor, Mrs. Ania, stops the session for Yona and Renil. The two boys are knocked down by a harsh formation. They sit down to recover. Yona is upset about his performance. Today he managed to score only 1 point against Raniel. During their sparring, he cannot hide his admiration. What an incredible Renil. Renio responds with a compliment, honestly admitting that Yona is already turning into a beast and does it on his own. He says Yona has a rare talent both in spiritual magic and in fencing. Yona is happy because his hard work is finally starting to bear fruit. But as soon as Yona vows to close the distance between them, Renil bursts into deep melancholy, one that hints much more is going on beneath the surface. In the mansion, the silence is shattered by a sudden violent blow. A dull rumble rolls through the corridors, like thunder from inside the walls. Rudo and our guy rushed to the source of that rumble, but immediately ran into complete chaos. Debris flew in all directions, taking their breath away. In the darkness under the furniture hides a small tiger cub, growling so fiercely as if ready to bite off a piece of anyone who dares to come closer. But this is not just some stray beast. This is a Eukaryon, a legendary species, white furry wings and a magical eye on the forehead, granting them unique, randomly determined abilities. Nad tries to keep composure, extends a hand and very carefully lures the little beast out of its hiding place. And this cube has zero patience and immediately lunges forward, bites directly into Naga's hand while Rudo watches in complete panic. Rudo manages to catch that spicy fluffy bundle, but it definitely is nibbling on his chips, keeps gnawing. "Oh, just don't bite me," he begs, although the little bear cub is clearly just stunned by the new environment. Since there is no manual on how to raise a legendary beast, the team is essentially acting blindly. Rudo understands that they need professional help and suggests going into the city to talk to the best students of Agatsumi. They tracked Neo and Luo, two researchers who look like they have spent more time on books than in the sun. Light, as soon as they hear the words Yukari on cube, a spark lights up in their eyes as if they pulled a triple SSR in 110 pull. They explain Eukaryons are so few that any mentions are almost myths, not to mention catching and finding a cube. Nagi will have to set boundaries and explain that the cube is still too wary for full scientific observation. The students are disappointed but still agree to wait and add everything they have dug up from ancient texts. They say these creatures are predator riders who very rarely leave their own territory. Their magical eye is a real thing. It can apply debuffs like petrification, illusions, or even direct invisibility. To help the cubs understand each other faster, the apprentices suggest they might need a specific item that will help bridge the silent gap in communication. They waited until the dungeon expedition team returned with rare materials to advance their own research in medicine. Rudo desperately rummages in search of a way to truly understand what the cube feels. Luel recalls the potion for the beast brain. It works as a universal translator for animals. The only catch is that these materials are incredibly hard to obtain, although perhaps they are hidden deep in the dungeon. Meggy decides as soon as the expedition team returns, they will immediately check her trophies. For now, they return to check the cube. It is still sitting in complete isolation under the furniture. The food and milk are untouched, and the cube seems to be struggling with a bunch of serious debuffs that have hit its mood. Naji tells Rudo to give them some space. He knows, you can't force a connection by strength. Rudo keeps his head steady, solemnly promising to wait for the day when the little tiger finally opens his heart. The next day, Philly and the entire expedition team finally roll back to the city after a successful run. She meets Nagi with a giant smile, proudly boasting trophies that would make any farmer green with envy. They secured for themselves Oron nectar, a valuable ingredient used in evolution elixirs. Nagi examines the sapphire leaf, a material of the highest grade, capable of erasing even the cruelest evil curses. Philly begins to break down his dungeon strategy, explaining how they established a base to start this grind. Lower tiers swarmed with insected trash mobs, giant ants and mantises. Nagi spreads his hands in surprise. He hadn't encountered them before, but Philly explains the aura of the great spirits probably made them hide. The team managed to gather a whole pile of poison and shells from these insects. They also came across plant monsters, dryads and oranies, quickly defeating them to collect more loot. These materials are extremely rare on the market, so the team holds a real gold mine in their hands. Neon, Neo, and Luol are tall, and this allows them to finally craft various high-quality medicines. Philly estimates there are about 100 monsters in the dungeon, and all of them will sooner or later respawn, ensuring a stable supply of materials. Between trance and herbs, she classifies the dungeon as high quality. Nagi repeats the rank as he realizes the enormous value they accidentally found. He recalls that the guild uses a 2-level ranking system for dungeons difficulty and loot quality. Difficulty is divided into 5 levels, from the lowest to the highest. Loot quality is rated on a scale from poor to the best. When they sit on a high-quality gold mine, Nagi decides, it's time to give this place a proper name, not just call it this dungeon. The disciples, as one, press their master and demand a name, one that matches his character. Nagi freezes for a moment, imagining the place their plan leads to. He thinks about bright flowers and that only the chosen ones will be able to reach them. He recalls giant plant monsters that guarded the groves. So he proposes the secret domain plant beasts, and the team is simply thrilled by the vibe. As soon as they start planning the next expedition, Nagi's gamer sense twitches anxiously. It's as if he is sharply pulled back in the air. The feeling is like something sharply caught the very space. In a moment, he is hit by an instant surge of spiritual energy, and Nagi's eyes widen sharply as he finally understands. Something very bad is happening here. He clearly feels that one of his doomed spirits is in mortal danger. And it's definitely not heavyweights like Suiko or Yona. On the contrary, the enemy apparently is putting at risk someone who is much more vulnerable. It's Rue, the first name he ever gave to save a young boy named Lumina many years ago. We see Lumina at this moment. Now he is older and desperately reaches out for protection using water magic. The village is being torn apart by monsters, and the screams of people tear through the air. Lumina is drenched in sweat as a terrible monster squid looms over him like a squid, deciding to wait for the strike. The monster's aura is pure horror. Fear paralyzes the boy while the creature flexes its strength, preparing to strike. He tries to interfere, but the monster's power is merciless. It simply knocks him off his feet. When the monster is about to finish him off, Naga's presence is revealed like a true god descending onto the battlefield. With a single smooth motion, he summons a giant sphere of water, trapping the monster inside and shielding Lumina. With a flick of his wrist, he crushes the beast with a water blast, and it flies back to the respawn screen in a bloody explosion. Nagi quietly descends, picking up the shimmering fragment left after the beast, a smaller water spirit, distorted. Lumina raises his gaze, and tears silently roll down his face as he finally recognizes his savior. Nagi shifts his gaze to Rue. She looks incredibly battered after all the damage. The situation is grim. Wounded are scattered all over the village, but Nagi releases a burst of healing light and the wounds heal instantly. People call it a miracle, but Nagi quietly signals Lumina, keep his true identity in the shadows. Despite the rescue, the village is still in terrible condition. Houses are leveled to the ground and the land is ravaged. Nagi looked at the ruins and tension froze on his face. He immediately understood that this could not be left as is. Mama Narsha and Lumina rush forward, breathing a sigh of relief because their boy is already in his body after that monster attack. Narsha has no idea who the man in the hood standing nearby is, asking, "Big brother, who is this?" A nostalgic buzz hits Lumina and he suddenly remembers. When Nagi first saved them, his little sister was so small she doesn't even remember his face. Lumina remains professional, introduces him as Lord Neji, the one who saved his life many years ago. Everything changes sharply as the village elders call a meeting to decide what their next step will be. This is a harsh reality check for our guy. He watches as bodies are moved further and realizes many people didn't have plot armor to survive until his arrival. Nagi is just resting on a crate while Lu swims nearby, waiting for Lumina to finish his business with the survivors. Finally, Lumina catches up with him and apologizes for being late. Nagi is interested in growth and radiant abilities. He notices a connection stretching between him and the little water spirit. He was struck that during that last fight, Lumina used real spirit magic. Lumina begins to remember how Louis was actually his guardian angel from the very day he first met Nagi. Even when his mother just cut her finger with scissors, Lou was already in the shadows doing his job. His mother always thought it was just a random mercy of the spirit, and never knew the true MVP he was right in front of her. For years, Lumina dreamed of finally seeing this spirit and thanking him for keeping his family healthy. On his 7th birthday, he finally pulled out the legendary brand and a mysterious mark flashed on his hand. Only then could he see the cute Lou. It was at that moment that Philly swept through the city, and everything suddenly became truly interesting. Philly, as an elf, immediately sensed the spirit and saw the contract mark on Lumina's right hand. Lumina was delighted and said, "You might feel it, but you are losing the connection," and that's exactly what happened. Philly is not some random NPC. As an elf, she can use spirit magic even without a contract. She offers to teach Lumin all the subtleties so he can become a top mage like Nagi. Returning to the present, Lumina clenches his hands and feels like he is still some low-level nobody because he couldn't defeat that last boss on his own. He stubbornly says this monster is of a level completely different from anything he has ever seen. Nagi reveals the dark essence. It was a crystalline water creature that demons transformed into a killing machine. The threat of demons is already growing worldwide, and even remote villages like this one are now becoming targets. Nagu looks Lumine straight in the eyes and says, since Lu is like his own child to him, he values Lumine the same way. He leans toward the child and quietly promises, if you ever find yourself in trouble, rely on me. Lumine does not hesitate. She bows her head and pleads, Lord Nagi, please save this village. It is painfully heartbreaking to see him fall apart and hear the explanation. They lost so many people, and their food supplies were completely destroyed. He is drenched in sweat because he does not dare to think about his people. If another wave of monsters breaks through, everyone will die of hunger. The situation is grim. Only about 20 men remain alive, holding the defense while injured women and children gather together under their protection. Nagi understands. Simply relocating them to his lake will not work because the dark elves will lose their peace seeing strangers entering the settlement. Therefore, he takes the challenge upon himself, placing his hand on the head of the crying boy and silently accepting responsibility for what will come next. Nagi promises them support so they can build a home from the very foundation step by step with their own hands. He also realizes if some random stranger suddenly starts giving things away for free, the village will definitely suspect something is wrong. He decides to show his true form as a great spirit to make the transition easier. The next day, Lumina takes him to the village elder and Nagi drops a bomb. I am Nagi, the great water spirit. To reinforce these words, Lumina explains, it was Nagi who cured her mother's deadly illness years ago. The crowd freezes in shock, amazed at why a true god would go to such lengths for them. Nagi modestly holds back. He says he is simply fulfilling a contract that Lumina made with her familiar. Just in time, a support squad arrives, wagons loaded to the brim with loot. Philly and a fat dwarf named Garu jump out from around the corner, saying they will take care of everything from supplies to building repairs. Seeing the cavalry arrive, the whole village instantly drops to the ground, a full bow down to the very foot to show respect. Nagi tells them to calm down and raise their heads. Food is more important than his ego. He appoints the village elder responsible for distribution, as he does not know the layout of the area. As soon as the villagers begin receiving food, despair recedes and the mood breaks and rapidly rises up to hope. Lumina approaches Nagi and in her gaze flickers a slight regret. She herself revealed his secret identity to everyone. But Nagi doesn't care about that. He is indifferent to what others think. He simply sincerely rejoices that Lumina's family looks healthy and grateful. And even Nagi's younger sister Nasha finally remembers the spirit who saved her when she was a baby. No one prompts her with a warm voice to stick together as a family, and yet she responds with the grandest smile. Suddenly, a loud rumble breaks the silence. Gerard starts smashing the house. Nagi, I'm asking you, what are you doing? The building could still be used. But the dwarf has a grander plan. He shows blueprints for a large-scale upgrade of the village architecture. From now on, all that's left for you is to sweat with the gnome's zeal for a full reconstruction. When the sun sets over the ruins, the restoration is in full swing, and by the end, hope begins to sprout in the village.